P.S. This is an alternate world. Don't compare it to reality. Shanghai City reeked of rot. Debris littered the streets. Cars sat abandoned at odd angles. Garbage rode the wind like birds with nowhere to land. In a dark room, a zombie stood by the window, empty sockets fixed on the ruined city. Outside, a snapped power pole leaned over the road, its cables draped like tangled hair. Tower windows were blown out. Walls were cracked and stained black. Shop signs hung crooked, doors half open, shelves already stripped bare. When does this half-dead life end? Chuan faced the mirror. He wanted to roar, but his shredded throat managed only a rough growl. The figure staring back was lean and ragged. His clothes were torn, yet almost tidy compared to the blood and grime outside. His skin was corpse-pale, blue-black veins stark under the surface. His face was all edges. Thick hair had thinned. Teeth had grown sharp and loose. His pupils had bled into full red, with just a trace of sorrow left in them. He slid off his jacket. A brutal bite gaped at his shoulder, flesh turned outward. The blood had dried long ago. The hole never closed. Anyone else would be dead. Chuan stood anyway. He was not human anymore. A month earlier, he had blacked out at his desk while working late. He thought he had died from exhaustion. He woke instead on a strange street under a calm sky. Gratitude for a second chance lasted only a breath. Explosions rolled through the city. Sirens rose. The street broke into panic. New to this world, Chuan ran with everyone else. Then he saw them. People in the crowd with blood on their faces. Wounds that should have dropped them. They still bit. For a heartbeat, he thought it was a film set. It wasn't. A zombie leapt onto his back and tore into his shoulder. White pain blanked his thoughts. Instinct took over. He grabbed, slammed, and caved its skull on the pavement. The toxin was faster than victory. Dizziness hit hard. He stumbled into a corner shop and collapsed. When he opened his eyes again, the city had fallen. Order was gone, and he had changed. He was a zombie with a mind. Hunger clawed at him. Pain didn't. The urge to feed pounded against his thoughts like a drum. Luck put him in a shop with a working fridge. For a month he chewed through frozen meat and tried to think like a person. No soldiers came. A few desperate survivors passed, and most never returned. Water and power died within a week. Now the fridge breathed only rot. Even reeking as he did, spoiled meat still turned his stomach. He needed food. Chuan pulled on a blood-stained shirt, slipped a crowbar into his backpack, and stepped outside. The crowbar wasn't for fighting. It was for locks. Zombies ignored him. Humans ran. Safety, for once, was the reward of being a monster. He limped on purpose and let out the occasional groan, avoiding the worst of his own kind. Their stench, after a month, was unbearable. He kept it close, searching the residential block behind the shop. On the second floor of a random building, he found a door ajar in a room smeared in old blood. Only a half-eaten corpse lay inside. He turned toward the kitchen. A baby cried next door. Rushua stared at the ceiling and felt the last of her will ebb. In her previous life, she had clawed through battlefields and disasters to become Empress of the human race. She had cut down alien elites and traded her life to stop the queen of the star-sky insect race. Death should have been the end. It wasn't. She woke again. Reborn. There was no joy. She was a baby. The timeline had snapped back 50 years to the start of the apocalypse. Her parents had already turned, then died. Luck had locked the bedroom door from the inside. Luck didn't feed her. 2 days without food left her dizzy and cramping. Powerless. Even lifting her arms was work. I was the Empress of humanity. Am I going to starve in a crib? Tears didn't come. Regret did. The doorknob rattled hard. Rushua held her breath. The lock held. The rattling stopped. Bang! The door cracked open, pried from the outside. A rotten face pushed through the splintered frame. Wan La! She cried, despair flooding her chest. After he pried the bedroom door open, Chuan saw at once that this room wasn't like the living room outside. The living room was sprayed with dry blood. The bedroom was almost spotless. A wedding photo hung above the bed. 2 people smiling wide, a sharp contrast to the ruined city outside the window. A double bed sat in the center. A dresser and a nightstand gathered a thin coat of dust. Someone had wrapped the corners of the tables, the wardrobe, and the bed frame with soft leather and cotton to keep a child from getting hurt. Toys and tiny clothes were scattered around. A bottle of milk curdled on the nightstand. Beside the bed stood a wooden crib. The sound he heard came from there. Chuan stepped closer. Inside lay a baby with skin like snow and cherry-red lips, maybe 6 or 7 months old. Wide black eyes fixed on him. He could swear he saw sorrow there, and a kind of quiet plea. She hadn't cried when he broke in. She only watched him. Poor little thing, he thought. Born safe, but into this. He had it bad, but the child had it worse. He could move. He could feed himself. No zombie would chase him in the street. This child could only lie here, one noise away from drawing a horde. From the room's care, this had been a happy family. Young parents, doting and careful. The blood outside told the rest. In their last moments, they locked this door, and then there was no one left to open it. What chance does an infant have in a city like this? Am I going to die? Ji Rushiwell lay in the crib, stunned and beyond tears. Reborn at last, and welcomed not by her parents, but by the stink of rot and the scrape of the undead. She prayed the one breaking in was human. The face at the door crushed that hope. In her past life, she could scatter a corpse tide with a wave. Now her limbs were soft and useless. Hunger cramped her belly. The stink made her gag. The room swam. So be it, she thought. Death again. It would not be the first time. Better an early end than this beginning. Her vision dimmed. She blacked out. Chuan flinched. Do I look that scary? He rushed to the crib and checked her breath. Still breathing. He let the air out slowly. He stared at the sleeping infant. Pity and something else stirred behind his red eyes. She was starving, too weak to cry, and in a way she was just like him, thrown into a strange world and greeted by the end of it. A thread formed between them, thin but real. He stood there a long moment, then his gaze steadied. He would take her in. It was a ridiculous decision. To zombies, humans were food. A zombie raising a human baby was a bad joke. But his mind was still his. Maybe that was luck. Maybe fate. He was not above the world. He had landed in it with no warning and spent a month drowning in its noise. Death, slaughter, screams. The city was nothing but ruin. And now, a spark in the dark. He had never been so alone. Zombies shuffled outside, but they were empty. He was infected, but he refused to call himself a monster. He was trapped between the living and the dead, and the loneliness ate at him until even ending it seemed like an answer. Then this child. In the middle of the rubble, a small, steady breath. It lit something he thought he had lost. A direction, a warmth. At least he would not be alone now. His chest tightened with a new fear. No, she could starve. He grabbed the crib rail and looked around the room for anything she could safely take, mind already racing for how to keep her alive through the day.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
After much hesitation, Chuan made a bold decision. He decided to adopt the baby. Only when the little one fainted did he realize. The little one probably hasn't eaten for a long time. The zombie apocalypse has been raging for over a month. Judging by the bloodstains outside, the original owner has been dead for at least 2 days. I must get some milk for this little guy first. This baby, only 7 or 8 months old, is too young, and other foods can't be digested. Only some formula milk will do. The milk powder can on the bedside table is already empty. He has to go out to find some. With this new hope of life, Chuan suddenly felt his month-long despair lifting, reigniting his spirits. For the first time in a month, his blood-red eyes showed a vision of a hopeful future. Chuan silently left the bedroom and resealed the door he had pried open. He then moved the heavy sofa in the living room in front of the door to securely block the bedroom entrance. At least, before he returns, it could temporarily hinder zombie movements. Other zombies don't have his wit. They only act on instinct and would likely be stalled by the sofa for a long time. Chuan entered the kitchen, but was disappointed to find no food there. It's understandable. It's been a month, and the food would surely have been eaten. Perhaps the parents of the little one went out to get food and met their fate. With no options left, Chuan could only check the upper floors. On reaching the third floor, perhaps in their desperate escape, the security door was left open. The dim hallway was strewn with blood, drying over time into black-brown patches coagulated on the surrounding walls and ground. The floor was littered with visible pieces of broken limbs and human organs. Clearly, when the zombie crisis broke out, the apartment door couldn't be closed in time, and as zombies flooded in, these fleeing people were all attacked. Corpses that were eaten down to mere skeletons and even torn apart human remains lay scattered. Even with the unit door wide open, the stench of decay permeated inside. Though Chuan detested this smell, being a zombie for some time now, he could adapt to such harsh environments. If it were his former self, he'd probably have run out and vomited uncontrollably. Roar! Roar! Ascending a few steps, Chuan spotted a zombie slumped in the hallway corner. This zombie had its chest and stomach wide open, its guts long gouged out, limbs gnawed away, leaving it to sit slumped despite being transformed. Looking up from the stairs, Chuan could hear a rustling sound and low zombie growls from above. Most of the zombies in this hallway had incomplete bodies, either slumped on the floor or crawling continuously on the staircase. Any humans faced with this hellish scene would be horrified, but Chuan had become accustomed to it. He ignored the zombies entirely and began to loot boldly. Chuan entered a house and headed straight for the kitchen. After all, in this apocalypse, money had no use, especially considering he was a zombie. But formula milk was scarce, and Chuan checked several places without finding any. Instead, he found some meat in the kitchen that was not completely rotten. However, due to the widespread power outage, there wasn't much. Bam! Reaching the fifth floor, Chuan smashed the door lock with a pry bar and pried open a security door, and was stunned by the scene inside the room. He saw a female zombie in a white dress long, stained red with blood. Upon hearing the noise, she quickly ran towards the door, but hesitated upon seeing a fellow zombie outside. Inside, Chuan observed bloodstains on the living room floor and a human skeleton barely a meter long. Apparently, after the zombie outbreak, the female owner turned into a zombie, and her beloved child became food swallowed into her belly. Chuan stood motionless, engulfed in silence, thinking about the little one he encountered earlier. If that baby hadn't been locked in the bedroom, it would likely face the same fate. Perhaps it's a silver lining amidst the misfortune. The little one was born in this apocalypse, but at least met a zombie, himself, who doesn't eat humans. Going to the kitchen, Chuan finally found 2 sealed cans of formula milk and 2 pounds of unspoiled meat. The household must have turned into zombies early in the apocalypse, so the food remained. Packing these into his backpack, Chuan glanced at the zombie, still pacing in the doorway. After a moment of silence, Chuan approached the zombie's back. Thwack! With a decisive thrust, the pry bar pierced the zombie's skull, granting it a release. Rushue, who had fainted, felt a sweet aroma wafting into her mouth in a daze. The rich milk fragrance intoxicated Rushue momentarily. Meanwhile, her long-hungry body instinctively sucked in response to this sweetness it missed. With a bit of energy replenished, Rushue managed to open her eyes with difficulty. She was amazed to find she hadn't died in a zombie's mouth. Even more shockingly, a grotesque, horrific zombie was feeding her with a spoon. Am I dreaming? Or is it just a hunger-induced hallucination? Rushue's bright eyes were filled with astonishment as she skeptically gazed at the zombie, seemingly acting as a wet nurse. In Rushue's past life memories, zombies were mere mindless, bloodthirsty monsters. After the zombie crisis broke out, many of Rushue's friends and companions fell prey to zombies. Even Rushue herself dealt with several companions bitten by zombies and driven insane. So at the moment of seeing a zombie, Rushue knew her end was looming. This ruthless horde of bloodthirsty monsters wouldn't spare her just because she's a baby. Yet she never expected that instead of being devoured, this zombie was feeding her. Could it be that the zombie plans to raise her then eat her? Seeing the little baby's eyes reopen, Chuan felt relieved. Noticing the bright eyes of the baby fixated on him, Chuan curled his lips, managing a not-so-scary smile. Little one, from now on, in this apocalypse, I will be your family. At the corner of the little one's mouth, Chuan could feel the unfulfilled desire in her eyes. This little one eats really well, doesn't she? Although Chuan had never been married or raised children, he knew that such a young infant should not be able to consume so much. It seems if I plan to adopt this little one, the pressure on me would be quite significant in the future. Chuan couldn't help but sigh internally. He finally understood why in his previous life so many of his colleagues worked so hard just to earn money from milk powder. Raising children is not easy at all. But fortunately, since it's already the apocalypse, he could go anywhere for free supplies, so he wasn't worried about having sufficient economic ability. It seems that when searching other places for supplies in the future, he needs to bring more milk powder, as this little one might eat even more. Fortunately, milk powder is mostly sealed, so it has a relatively long storage time. After being fed, Rushua lay comfortably in the crib, looking thoroughly content. After having been hungry for so long, drinking milk now was like nectar and ambrosia to Rushua. Rushua curiously looked at Chuan. She had never seen such a strange thing before. A zombie, supposed to be bloodthirsty and devour flesh everywhere, actually resisted the urge to attack her. That alone was odd enough. Yet it even made milk powder and fed it to her with a spoon. This was simply too absurd. In her past life, Rushua personally experienced the entire outbreak of the apocalypse, successfully surviving to the end after overcoming numerous hardships, eventually achieving the Emperor realm. As an unparalleled Empress, what kinds of zombies hadn't she encountered? It could even be said that she lost count of the number of zombies that perished at her hands. Though these zombies later evolved continuously, gradually developing intelligence after evolution. But that was not something that could happen now. At least the zombie before her emitted a very low aura, clearly just a newly transformed, low-strength, first-level zombie. Such zombies were everywhere, a result of being infected by the zombie virus. Zombies of this level could definitely not awaken intelligence, just a group of bloodthirsty monsters following instincts. Rushua looked at the zombie before her, truly puzzled by the situation. Nevertheless, Rushua had faced various life and death crises in her past life, and after the initial panic, she gradually calmed down. After all, for whatever reason, this zombie hadn't planned to eat her for the time being, so there was no need to worry excessively. Even if the zombie really intended to attack her, she had at least filled her belly before her death, dying with a full stomach. At least she wouldn't starve to death in the crib, not soiling the reputation of her life as an empress. However, after filling her stomach, a wave of drowsiness hit Rushua. After days of hunger and fear, her nerves had been extremely tense. Now, having eaten, those nerves finally relaxed. Rushua's eyes gradually closed, and she couldn't help but deeply fall asleep. After all, she was still just an infant, and managing to hold on until now was already her limit. Eating and then sleeping, it's good to be young. Looking at the adorable little one in his arms, Chuan silently sighed in his heart. Having personally fed this baby, saving her young life, Chuan felt an inexplicable sense of achievement. Looking at the tranquil and beautiful baby lying quietly in the crib, Chuan felt extremely warm inside. In this devastated and desolate city, it had been a while since he had seen a living person, let alone such a fragile life. In the face of disaster, the arrival of a newborn might be a very troublesome matter, but at the same time, it also represents a continuation of new hope. Hearing the baby's gradually steady breathing, Chuan couldn't help but smile. Although his smile looked rather terrifying now, it was the first time since coming to this strange world, amongst the zombie outbreak, that Lu Chuan felt the long-lost quiet and beauty. From now on, in this zombie-overrun city, he wouldn't be alone anymore. Little one, you and I are both in unfortunate situations, arriving in this strange world only to face a zombie crisis. Don't worry, I'll take good care of you, Lu Chuan thought with emotion. But Lu Chuan was very aware that in this extremely resource-scarce post-apocalyptic world, raising a baby wasn't going to be easy, especially with his identity as a zombie. If the baby were born in a human survivor base, it would be another story, but being with him, there's no telling what danger she might encounter in the future. Nonetheless, Lu Chuan was now very determined. No matter what, he would do everything in his power. For the past month, Lu Chuan had been living in a daze. Every day was like neither human nor ghost, continuously facing death and desolation, having long since grown tired of this strange world with nothing to linger for. This little one was not just a newly born life, but the appearance of this baby was also Lu Chuan's belief and motivation to continue living in this strange zombie world. If Ji Rushue hadn't fallen asleep at this moment, she would definitely notice the human-like emotions in the blood-red eyes of the zombie before her, with a very resolute gaze. Lu Chuan had already cleared out the remaining zombies from the stairway. Perhaps due to being an old neighborhood, there were not too many zombies lingering inside. Additionally, most of these zombies had undergone mutations through gnawing, leaving most of them missing parts. Zombies typically don't attack each other unless competing over food. Currently, Lu Chuan, as a zombie possessing human thoughts, moved among them seamlessly. Others could only flee in panic upon seeing zombies, but Lu Chuan could swagger through them. Zombies, having died once, lack the concept of pain, and unless their head is destroyed, it's difficult to kill nearly immortal beings. Lu Chuan had seen zombies with broken bones still squirming on the ground, constantly banging on doors, attempting to devour the humans inside. The human body actually holds enormous potential. However, humans typically inhibit their power out of self-preservation. For example, humans have great strength but won't exert it fully, as even if they hurt the opponent, their arm may break. But bloodthirsty zombies lack this restraint, making them stronger than humans. Yet, the major difference between humans and other animals is that humans employ tools. Though Lu Chuan is a zombie, he refuses to use his mouth to tear apart foul, rotten corpses. With a metal crowbar scavenged from a store, Lu Chuan transformed into a stealthy backstabber. Holding the crowbar, Lu Chuan took out the zombies one by one with headshots, easily eliminating them all. If he didn't first deal with these zombies, he wouldn't dare to parade around with the little one. Those zombies were transformed from the dead, akin to moving corpses. These zombies, however, are exceptionally sensitive to the scent of the living. With a zombie outbreak having occurred a month ago, survivors have either hidden away or have been eaten by zombies. These ravenous zombies haven't tasted fresh humans for a long time. If they were to catch the little one's scent, there would be no path but death. Upon reaching the 7th floor, Lu Chuan placed Ji Rushue in the bedroom he had already cleaned up. Being the top floor, it largely blocked the transmission of scents and sounds, offering a safe place for now. Previously, Lu Chuan grew accustomed to the post-apocalyptic decay, residing in the store where he had fainted. After waking, he would gnaw on raw meat, idly sitting by the window, watching zombies search for survivors. Now, seeing the little one, Lu Chuan felt new life infusing shades into his own. In front of this baby, Lu Chuan didn't want to maintain his zombie side, instinctively trying to reclaim his humanity. Lu Chuan planned on turning this room into their future home, aiming to restore a human lifestyle. The dust-covered room had been cleaned beforehand by him. After a month of desolation, Lu Chuan wiped his body with bottled water, changing into relatively clean clothes. Besides somewhat grimacing scars and wounds unlikely to heal, he almost looked like a normal human overall. Most notably, he found in a room's bedroom an assortment of baby clothes, diapers, bottles, toys, and books. Most likely, the previous residents had children, and when the zombie outbreak occurred, they fled frantically. Chuan stood in front of the window, gazing at the devastation outside, stretching leisurely. Perhaps due to the baby, Chuan felt a surge of motivation and hope, despite the ruined world. Most importantly, his movements seemed frequent over the past couple of days. Initially, upon becoming a zombie, Chuan's limbs were very stiff, as zombies come from deceased humans. But now, as time passed, Chuan felt his movements becoming more coordinated. While still not as free-moving as before, he could accomplish some simple human actions now. Do all zombies transition like me over time? Or is it due to my increased activity? Feeling the changes within him, Chuan was puzzled. Yet Chuan didn't dwell on it. His thoughts remained on the little baby. Picking up the diapers found in the wardrobe, Chuan prepared to change Jirushiwe. Absorbent and dry, diapers are truly one of humanity's great inventions. Chuan, holding the diaper, smiled and proceeded to change Jirushiwe. Though complex actions eluded him, simple acts were still achievable. Jirushiwe felt a tingling sensation across her scalp. Being fed like a baby was odd enough, but changing diapers. Feeding might be a biological instinct, yet these baby diapers are a human invention, not executed purely by instinct alone. An overwhelming thought invaded Jirushiwe's mind. Could it be that this zombie retained human consciousness? This was simply against all logic. Jirushiwe had seen that even the warriors with the strongest will, once infected by the virus and turned into zombies, could only become bloodthirsty beasts. As a former Empress of humanity, Jirushiwe had encountered countless zombies. But she had never heard of zombies that could pry open doors and feed milk to a baby. Today, it even changed her diaper. Is there anything more outrageous than that? These abnormal occurrences made Jirushiwe more convinced of her hypothesis. This peculiar zombie before her must have retained its prior human consciousness. Otherwise, she wouldn't have survived till now and would have been torn to pieces long ago. At this moment, Jirushiwe felt extremely excited, as if she had discovered a new world. In her past life, she had seen it all and encountered numerous powerful zombies and other creatures. But this was the first time she had encountered something transformed by the zombie virus, yet able to retain human consciousness. Only human will could suppress such bloodthirsty instincts. But wait a moment. The zombie in front of her, no matter how you look at it, doesn't seem like a female. Was I, the Empress, changed by a male? Jirushiwe widened her eyes, finally reacting to the situation. Realizing that she had been fully exposed just now, her emotions became very agitated. In her past life, she had never even touched a man's hand. Even in the apocalypse, Jirushiwe had never had any intimate contact with the opposite sex. Who would have thought her lifelong purity would be ruined over a diaper? For a moment, Jirushiwe felt like crying, but had no tears, lamenting that she seemed to have encountered every misfortune imaginable after being reborn. But after a moment, Jirushiwe's expression returned to normal. Oh well. In the battle against the insect race queen, I should have perished. To be reborn now is a blessing. Besides, my life was saved by the other party, and just being alive now is already very fortunate. After figuring this out, Jirushiwe no longer fussed over it, especially since she was currently just an infant, not the revered Empress of her past life. Looking at Chuan, who was earnestly changing her diaper, Jirushiwe felt touched. In the apocalypse, humanity and morality had already completely collapsed. The notion of order had long ceased to exist. Struggling to survive in the apocalypse, Jirushiwe had long witnessed just how depraved humanity could become. For those surviving in the apocalypse, staying alive was paramount. To survive, they would do anything, betraying friends and family, feeding those around them to zombies. Theft, prostitution, deceit, and trickery were commonplace in the apocalypse. In her past life, Jirushiwe had experienced many losses, and it was only after such experiences that she gradually adapted to the harsh world of the apocalypse. Yet the zombies so focused on changing her diaper made Jirushiwe feel a sense of humanity from before the apocalypse. Could this zombie see her as his daughter? Thinking of this, Ji Rushiue's heart skipped a beat, and her mind involuntarily concocted a tragic story. Perhaps the zombie had a beloved daughter before the apocalypse, but in the end times, human lives were as fragile as weeds. In the face of wave-like, bloodthirsty zombies, only 1 in 10 humans survived. Especially in the initial outbreak, for ordinary urban humans, the hope of survival was almost non-existent. Most likely, this zombie's daughter had died following the apocalypse, yet he still longed for his daughter in his mind. It was this family bond that transcended life and death that made this supposed bloodthirsty zombie treat her as his daughter. That is why, upon seeing her, it exhibited tenderness different from other zombies. Everything this zombie did for her was something he had once done for his daughter. Even after turning into a zombie, he couldn't let go of his daughter. Watching Chuan, already turned into a zombie, with his extremely rigid limbs, clumsily changing her diaper, Ji Rushue felt a mix of empathy and pity for him. Imagine a human originally with a happy family suddenly faced with the apocalypse. Everything familiar around him had changed, and he even became a bloodthirsty zombie, losing his beloved family. The saddest part was that even after losing everything, this zombie still retained human consciousness. Though he was dead, he had to painfully continue living. He continued to live alone in this devastated city long ruined, wandering desolately among the zombies without a single true companion. Because he had human consciousness, he couldn't live a bloodthirsty, muddled life like other zombies every day. Yet, having become a zombie, he could no longer integrate into human groups. He could only watch the fellow human beings he once knew all aim their weapons at him, their eyes full of loathing and hatred. Whether zombie or human, there was no place for him. It was as if he were the loneliest person drifting outside this world. This world was vast and expansive, yet he couldn't have a single companion to walk with him. The experience of walking alone in this world was a fate worse than death. Ji Rushue looked at the zombie in front of her and sighed internally. Before becoming the human Empress, she too was just a pure-hearted and kind girl, with her own soft spots within. If you take me as your daughter, then I, the Empress, declare, from now on, you're the Empress's zombie father. Because after the zombie outbreak, the owner of this house probably escaped with their family. So, even though the door was left open, there were no bloodstains inside, just some dust, making it look renewed after a simple cleaning. After tidying up the room, Chuan was very satisfied with the new home for himself and the little one. The location here is high enough to easily overlook the environment of the district and effectively isolate the spread of smells and sounds, avoiding the anxiety of living on lower floors. Now that the room is tidied up, the next thing to consider is food storage. Previously, Chuan had been gnawing on the leftover frozen meat from the stores, but that wouldn't suffice now. The little one is still so young. Many things need to be considered, and the temporary batch of formula he brought back is definitely not enough for the little one. The little one can drink 3 big bowls at a time. The appetite is exceptional. Not to mention, once the little one is weaned, they will need other food to eat. Chuan made up his mind to store more food in his little nest. Looking outside, it was still daytime, so Chuan lay down on the sofa. After all, he was now a zombie. Although the zombies all over the streets ignored him, Chuan was more worried about those survivors hiding in the shadows. Zombies have no thoughts. They only know to devour living humans. And, as the same kind, they won't attack him. Now, with a world full of bloodthirsty zombies, it's actually the safest for Chuan. If he were to go out looking for supplies during the day and was spotted by a lurking survivor, it might raise some suspicion. Despite dressing up as much like a human as possible, the zombie's attitude towards him would still attract the attention of those mindful people. Humans now can only hide like rats, fleeing frantically from these bloodthirsty zombies. But if he were comfortably carrying supplies along the streets, it would certainly give away clues. Merely attracting attention is one thing. The fear is exposing his own nest and the little one as well. In a post-apocalyptic world, humans aren't much safer than zombies. Soon, the sun set, and the entire city plunged into darkness. Due to widespread water and power outages, the once vibrant modern city now presented a scene of deathly silence, punctuated by the occasional zombie roar in the dark night. For other survivors, the arrival of night is undoubtedly despairing, because human vision at night drastically decreases. To find direction and supplies in this unlit city, one must rely on flashlights or night vision devices. But zombies aren't entirely restricted in this way. Even in the night, Chuan could move freely, changing clothes, putting on a backpack, and picking up his crowbar specifically for lockpicking. Chuan was ready to set out. This night serves as the best cover for him. However, before leaving, Chuan closed the bedroom door and dragged a large cabinet to block the staircase entrance on the 7th floor, preventing other zombies from breaking into the room. These mindless zombies find it difficult to perform smart actions, using the cabinet to block the stairway. Even if zombies enter the corridor, they'll eventually be obstructed. Furthermore, the zombies in this building have been completely cleaned out. New ones usually won't bother climbing stairs. The little one is still young, not likely to cause too much noise in the room. However, Chuan did this partly to guard against zombies and also to prevent humans. Since becoming a zombie, Chuan has spent the last month living in a store, witnessing many post-apocalyptic calamities through the window. At the beginning of the apocalypse, most people could still maintain calm and kindness amidst the crisis. But as deaths increased and food shortages intensified, the dark side of human nature began to reveal itself. Moreover, those kindest and most willing to help usually died early at the hands of zombies. Chuan remembers that within days of the crisis, one could often hear women's cries in the streets. The sound was enough for him to know what was happening, and as weeks passed, the city began experiencing water and power cuts. Some even initiated flesh trade, just for a bite to eat. Pushing one's companion towards zombies for one's own escape became a commonplace occurrence in the apocalypse. Chuan even witnessed survivors who, driven mad by hunger, turned on their partners. Though he had become a zombie, Chuan restrained himself from hunting humans despite the bloodlust. But some still alive began to kill and eat their own companions. These people have lost their basic humanity, unworthy of being called humans, even sparing no child. If the little one were discovered, the consequences would be unimaginable. They'd do anything for a bite. Chuan resided in an old district called Sunshine District, where each building has a big iron security gate on the first floor. Chuan closed the iron gate on the first floor and used a rope to tightly bind it before leaving in peace. The area was mainly residential, and even though households might not have abundant reserves, there was still substantial stock combined. Packing a substantial amount of food into a hiking backpack, Chuan conveniently hugged the remaining directly in his arms. If some survivor with night vision goggles were present, they would witness a bizarre scene. On the dark and quiet street, a bloodthirsty zombie was lurking, carrying a large pile of formula milk. Suddenly, Chuan sensed something amiss. He looked up sharply and realized that, somehow, the originally dim moon had turned into a blood moon. The moon in the sky seemed freshly stained with blood, appearing eerie in the quiet night. Sunshine District, Building 7, Room 702. Bedroom on the bed. After waking up, Rushiue found the room empty. Zombie Dad, what are you doing out at night? I really want to pick. Well, there are diapers. What a great invention. At this moment, Rushiue noticed through the partially drawn window that the blood moon outside looked incredibly bizarre. Blood moon. Is it already the night of the blood moon? It seems the era of global evolution is about to begin. On the street, Chuan stared at the blood moon overhead, feeling a bit bewildered. Rushiue, the Reborn Empress, had experienced the end times and knew much about the blood moon. But Chuan had come from another peaceful world and had no idea what this meant. Nevertheless, Chuan quickly found a corner and set down the baby formula he was holding. Opening the can of formula, Chuan was relieved to find the formula inside remained white. Thank goodness, that gave me a fright. I thought I had contracted pink eye. My eyes are fine. Does that mean the moon really turned blood-colored? This sudden change left Chuan somewhat amazed, but he quickly picked up the supplies and continued toward home. In this odd world, even a zombie apocalypse can occur, so the moon turning blood red doesn't seem impossible. To be precise, a silent, dark night, an empty city, beast-like roars, a blood-red round moon. This is the standard end times setup, right? Chuan felt no discomfort with the arrival of the blood moon, instead thinking it seemed as it should be. After all, he had seen many similar scenarios in various sci-fi movies in his previous life. Ignoring the changes in the sky, Chuan transformed into a hamster, starting a frenzy of moving supplies that night. Being a zombie meant he hardly felt fatigue, and his strength was significantly greater than before. Thus, Chuan brought back all the items a little guy might use, batch after batch. Things like formula, bottles, and diapers were essential for a baby, and Chuan packed up a heap of them each time. Before long, the room was filled with supplies, hoarded by Chuan. Next, Chuan began stockpiling various snacks and children's toys, even grabbing children's books. Though it was said to be the apocalypse, Chuan felt it was still important to teach the little one to read and talk. After all, as the saying goes, one should never compromise on education. Ji Ruxiue saw the pile of 3 years of exam practice, 5 years of mock exams that Chuan brought back, feeling her scalp tingle. If I remember correctly, I'm not even a year old yet, right? Starting with exam papers now isn't a bit too soon. Besides, it's the apocalypse and exams. But Chuan didn't care about these things. He just brought back anything he thought useful. Even though the little one was still less than a year-old baby, Chuan hauled back several sacks of 50-kilo rice. Chuan found that after becoming a zombie, his strength increased considerably, and his stamina improved, able to lift these 50-kilo sacks with one hand. Rice is good. Rice is filling. This was Chuan's most straightforward thought. As for how to cook meals without water and electricity, and when a not even 1-year-old might eat rice, these weren't within his current consideration. These things would be useful someday. Throughout this transport process, Chuan felt no fatigue, but rather that life was full of hope. He felt everything he did now was laying the foundation for a better new life, and once he started, he couldn't stop. This roughly 100-square-meter house was already packed full by Chuan. Then on his 4th round of moving, Chuan suddenly felt something wasn't right with his body. Chuan quickly set down the supplies and leaned against the wall. At this moment, Chuan felt that his already zombie body inexplicably sensed a scorching heat. This odd phenomenon left Chuan immensely shocked, aware that he was currently a zombie. To be precise, a moving corpse. His blood had long stopped flowing, turning into a sickly black-brown color. The icy chill throughout his body made this strange, searing feeling both unfamiliar and familiar to him. At that instant, Chuan suddenly felt a surge of emotion. The scorching energy within made him feel as though he had returned to his living times. However, immediately after, Chuan noticed his brain itching intolerably, appearing as if it might explode. Chuan could only squat in the corner at this moment, clutching his head, his body trembling uncontrollably. He didn't know what was happening. Damn it! Has my human consciousness experience card expired? Am I to become one of those bloodthirsty zombies? This suddenly descending strange sensation made Chuan somewhat panicked at that moment. He had just found the resolve to revitalize his life, discovered new hope and goals. He had managed within this broken world to find a companion to live on with him, and Chuan refused to let himself fade away like this. At this moment, Chuan clenched his teeth, his previously blood-red eyes now filled with determination. Though Chuan didn't know what was happening to him or what he might become, he wanted to stay conscious. Chuan didn't notice at this moment that the black veins on his body were gradually lightening and transitioning to a greenish color. Meanwhile, the terrifying-looking wound on his shoulder, after a month, had eroded and dried, appearing filthy and disgusting. But this gruesome wound astonishingly began to heal slowly. Though it didn't return to its original state, it looked less grotesque than before. Chuan's nails also began to change gradually, and those sharp, loose teeth became a bit more aligned. Because he had become a zombie, Chuan's once thick black hair had fallen out into sparseness. Yet now, as Chuan's body kept trembling, his originally sparse hair grew thicker. Though still far from its living appearance, it improved significantly from the zombie-like baldness. At this moment, amid the silent night, sporadic zombie roars echoed. Many zombies under the moon experienced the same as Chuan, their bodies trembling. Some survivors exposed to the moonlight experienced bodily heat, undergoing some changes under its glow. Their internal blood flow sped up, organs pulsating more vigorously, muscles becoming more toned, bones seemingly tougher. Sunshine District. Ji Rushiwe in the bedroom was also bathed in the blood-red moonlight from the window. Her petite body started trembling slightly. Ji Rushiwe felt her entire body heating up. Chuan didn't know how much time had passed when he slowly opened his eyes and found himself lying on the street. What the hell happened with the blood moon last night? No matter how thick-skinned Chuan could be, he sensed that something was off. That strange transformation that occurred when the crimson moonlight shone on him was something Chuan couldn't forget. If we go by the typical sci-fi movie trope, the birth of that blood moon seems like it heralds a new era. But why don't I feel any different now? Chuan looked around. The gravity of this planet was still the same, and the ruined buildings looked the same as when he fainted. He had no idea what had happened. Helplessly, Chuan shook his head and prepared to pick up the supplies he had dropped all over the place. But soon, Chuan sensed something wasn't right. Wait a minute. When he got up, he didn't feel anything unusual, but as he started moving, he realized that his agility seemed to have significantly improved. Before, even as a zombie, he could only perform simple movements after a month, and his limbs were still a bit stiff. Now, however, his coordination had improved significantly, and Chuan felt a surge of power throughout his body. His body felt lighter, his movements more agile, and even the distance he covered with each step was longer and faster. Moreover, upon looking down, Chuan was amazed to find that the black veins on his body had faded quite a bit. Even his nails had changed somewhat, becoming more like those of an ordinary human. As a breeze blew by, Chuan touched his head out of instinct. He suddenly noticed that the bald spot that had formed after becoming a zombie was now growing hair again. Though it was still patchy, it was much better than before. After picking up the supplies from the ground, Chuan found that his strength was significantly enhanced, almost doubled, and his physical abilities improved greatly. Feeling a connection, Chuan looked at the zombies wandering the street and noticed that they too had undergone some changes. The originally hideous and disgusting zombies now looked somewhat more human-like after the Blood Moon night. Though life, once monotonous and repetitive, seemed to have gained some variation after the Blood Moon. Instead of panicking, Chuan felt a little pleased inside due to these sudden changes. Having inexplicably come to this strange world and living a muddled life every day, he finally experienced some change. Living the same routine daily would become boring sooner or later. But now, Chuan realized this world was not as simple as he had imagined. After all, the existence of zombies could be explained by a virus, but the Blood Moon seemed a bit over the top. It's very likely that the zombie crisis this time wasn't just about a virus. Chuan gathered his supplies and was ready to head home when a strange feeling suddenly surfaced as he passed a zombie. Looking at the zombie in front of him, with its ferocious face and occasional low growls, Chuan sensed that there was a vague connection between him and this zombie. Could it be that I've been single for too long? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Shaking his head fiercely, Chuan quickly realized that this unique connection wasn't due to any strange affection for the zombie. Rather, it felt like his mind had created countless threads connecting him to the zombie. The zombies in front of him seemed like empty-headed dolls without consciousness. It seemed he had gained a special ability to project his thoughts through these invisible threads, controlling them like puppets. This peculiar ability made Chuan a bit excited, so he quickly began to test his hypothesis. As Chuan focused, he vaguely felt his connection to the zombie growing stronger. In no time at all, the limping, shuffling zombie suddenly stood still. Forward, backward, raise your hand. If anyone were on the scene, they would have been astounded. On this desolate street, a zombie began doing arm exercises. Chuan couldn't help but smile, confirming his suspicion that he could control the zombie's actions. Chuan was sure that last night's blood moon was anything but ordinary. That mysterious crimson moonlight had caused changes not only to him, but to all zombies. Moreover, his situation seemed special. Not only was his physical strength enhanced, but he could also control other zombies. Chuan named this peculiar ability corpse control. With his newfound ability, Chuan started experimenting with it, as if he were a child with a new toy. Having watched sci-fi movies and read web novels in his past life, Chuan knew that those who awakened powers in such apocalyptic times were generally top tier. It seems that I have the potential to become a great power. Chuan kept controlling the zombie, making it perform all kinds of strange antics. Dancing, playing basketball, rapping. Too bad the zombie couldn't speak. There were many zombies on the street, so Chuan conducted extensive experiments. After several confirmations, he discovered that he could control up to 2 zombies at the same time to perform different actions. And if they were too far away, he couldn't issue precise commands. Chuan figured that this was probably related to his spiritual power. At least that's what those sci-fi movies and novels he read said. And the zombies he controlled, Chuan referred to them as corpse puppets, meaning they were mindless dolls under his control. After experimenting for a long time, Chuan started feeling a bit tired. Oh no, the little one is still at home. Only then did Chuan remember that he had been moving supplies overnight and persevered long after being exposed to the blood moon. But he eventually fainted, and he didn't know how much time had passed. He was concerned about what might have happened to the little one alone at home. After all, the little one was just a baby. Even without zombies, there were potential dangers. Chuan quickly instructed Puppet 1 and Puppet 2 to carry the supplies he had collected and hurried towards Sunshine District. Behind Chuan, 2 zombies carrying supplies followed him. Under his conscious manipulation, these originally stiff-limbed zombies could also follow more instructions. Having number 1 and number 2 corpse puppets helping carry supplies really made Chuan feel much more at ease. Chuan now understands what it feels like to be a boss. Indeed, having subordinates to help with work feels quite enjoyable. Looking at the 2 corpse puppets, devoid of any emotions and only focusing on hard labor, Chuan nodded silently in approval. I don't know how to specifically enhance the power to control zombies. If I can command more zombie minions in the future, sustaining myself and the little ones would be a breeze. A vision surfaced in Chuan's mind of leading a group of zombie minions, swaggering through the city. Such thoughts indeed felt quite formidable. With 2 zombies in tow, Chuan returned to the doorstep of Building 5, directly directing number 1 and number 2 corpse puppets to carry all the retrieved supplies up to the 7th floor. After that, Chuan tasked these 2 zombies to stand guard on the 1st floor. Under normal circumstances, humans would not venture into areas with zombies to scavenge, and zombies do not engage in mutual slaughter. Therefore, these 2 zombie minions could perfectly serve as Chuan's surveillance. If any issues arise, it would immediately trigger Chuan's alertness and also enable remote combat. The key is that zombie gatekeepers require neither food nor wages. They're natural workhorses. With such zombie gatekeepers watching over, the safety of the little ones at home is greatly enhanced. Meanwhile, in the bedroom on the 7th floor, Ji Rushue, having undergone the baptism of the blood-red moonlight overnight, finally started to gradually awaken from her slumber. Ji Rushue's eyes slowly brightened and cleared. Then she felt a massive influx of information rushing into her mind. Upon receiving this vast information, Ji Rushue's eyes were filled with excitement. She was very familiar with these peculiar things. In the next moment, Ji Rushue's gaze landed on a leaf on the windowsill. With gleaming eyes, Ji Rushue focused, and the leaf on the windowsill astonishingly rose into the air without any breeze. That leaf then flew directly into the room and paused mid-air for 2 seconds. Such a bizarre scene would undoubtedly amaze any onlookers. After the cycle of the blood moon, Ji Rushue awakened an extraordinary ability, telekinesis control. Using her mind, she could manipulate objects, enabling them to fly through the air and retrieve items remotely, truly defying common logic. What thrilled Ji Rushue the most was that she not only awakened telekinesis control, but also reacquired her extraordinary ability from her previous life, time control. Ji Rushue remembered that in her past life, individuals had begun researching the causation behind these awakener abilities. Through various experiments and long-term summaries of different cases, someone in Ji Rushue's past life proposed that the awakening of extraordinary abilities might be closely related to a person's soul. Different souls would possess different extraordinary powers. At that time, the theory hadn't been perfectly validated, but now Ji Rushue could confirm that the awakening of extraordinary power was indeed linked to innate talent. Even though she was reborn, her soul remained unchanged, so she perfectly inherited the time control ability she had awakened in her previous life. Ji Rushue felt immensely excited, as she had become even more powerful than she was in her previous life. After all, reborn with an additional ability on top of the original, she is considered a dual-talented awakener. Moreover, both talents she awakened are extraordinary and possess the potential to achieve a top-tier strong persona. A flash of a domineering aura of unrivaled supremacy emerged in Ji Rushue's eyes. In her past life, solely relying on the ability of time control, she thrived in the apocalypse. As she grew, the terrifying time power significantly endowed Ji Rushue with the capability to control entire battlefields. She could freeze the battlefield, accelerate or decelerate the time flow around herself and her opponents. This talent is simply miraculous beyond imagination. Relying on this powerful, extraordinary strength, Ji Rushue ultimately transformed and achieved the throne of Empress. And in this life, she not only possesses the power of time control, but also telekinesis control. The ability to manipulate objects via telekinesis is extremely useful in apocalyptic battles. Whether for offense or defense, it brings remarkable effects. Ji Rushue secretly sighed, thinking that had she possessed the talent ability of telekinesis control in her previous life, her capability to fight multiple foes would have been even stronger. But then Ji Rushue felt a sharp pain emerged in her mind. She felt a sense of exhaustion. Her breathing couldn't help but become rapid and heavy. Though successfully awakening 2 talents after her rebirth, there is a downside. Currently, she is still a baby. This few months old body is exceptionally weak. Even after using her talent abilities for a short while, she has reached her limit. Her foundation level is indeed weaker than in her previous life. Nevertheless, Ji Rushue remained extremely thrilled. Low basic spiritual power is not a concern. As she grows, this telekinetic force will continually enhance. Though she is still merely a baby, once grown, her strength might surpass that of her previous life tremendously. Besides, compared to telekinesis, possessing 2 exceptionally rare talents is paramount. Ji Rushue couldn't help envisioning her future self, wielding unparalleled power. By then, perhaps encountering the insect race Empress who killed her in her previous life might result in victory. At this moment, Ji Rushue heard some noise from outside the room. Has her zombie father returned? A zombie with human consciousness is indeed extremely unusual. Even as an Empress, Ji Rushue never encountered such an instance in her previous life. While lying in bed, she couldn't help but grow curious, wondering whether zombies with human consciousness, after undergoing the blood moon baptism, could successfully evolve. Would they, like humans, awaken extraordinary abilities? Considering the current situation, The awakening of extraordinary abilities is related to the soul, and having a soul means there's potential for awakening. Ji Rushue is eager to witness what a zombie possessing human consciousness and awakened with extraordinary abilities would look like. Chuan quickly reached the rooftop and saw the wardrobe he had placed in the hallway remained untouched, which made him breathe a sigh of relief. This time, going out, he encountered the blood moon, and the most critical thing was that he had fainted. Chuan was very worried about what had happened at home. This was the first time Chuan felt a sense of attachment after arriving in this world. For the past month, Chuan had been living in a daze, never having felt any sense of worry. This unique emotion only humans have made Chuan feel more and more that he was still alive. After being exposed to the blood moon, Chuan's strength increased significantly, making it easy for him to move the wardrobe aside. Rushing back to the bedroom, Chuan found the little one on the bed staring at him with wide eyes. Even though he had never been in a relationship, this scene made Chuan feel like a father. The little one's eyes were bright and clear, completely different from the zombies all over the streets. Such a serene and adorable baby seemed to have the ability to purify everything in this post-apocalyptic world. Chuan's heart, which had been restless after the evolution, gradually calmed down after returning home. Little one, you must have woken up hungry after being away for so long. Chuan smiled and walked into the kitchen to start mixing the baby formula. Now the city had extensive water and power outages, so boiling water was impossible. After all, he couldn't burn wood indoors. If the house caught fire, it would be disastrous. He could only use mineral water to mix the formula, and that's the condition he's in now. After all, in this post-apocalyptic world, survival is all that matters. While Chuan was mixing the formula, Ji Rushue was also observing her zombie father. Ji Rushue noticed changes in Chuan's body, including his skin, which looked much more human than it did yesterday. However, this change was not very noticeable, differing from her memories. In Ji Rushue's impression, zombies initially were ordinary first-tier zombies, transformed by the zombie virus. For example, Chuan was initially this type, but after that blood-red moon appeared, the world experienced strange changes. Especially these bloodthirsty zombies underwent the most significant changes. They typically transformed into different types based on the kind of zombie they were. Ji Rushue remembered that not long after the apocalypse began in her previous life, some zombies evolved after the blood moon into exceedingly tall and strong creatures. Zombies that were originally only 1.78 meters tall could evolve to become 2 or 3 meters tall. Their muscle mass increased terrifyingly, their skin became extremely tough, and their bones far surpassed those of ordinary creatures. These zombies possessed bodies many times larger than ordinary zombies. On the battlefield, they could withstand most damage and had outstanding resilience. When these zombies appeared on the battlefield, they were extremely difficult to destroy and possessed incredibly strong power. Ordinary obstacles were easily overturned or shattered by them. Zombies that evolve along this path were often called tank-type zombies by human survivors in the previous life. This meant that this zombie, like a main battle tank, could easily crush everything in front of it. It was a nightmare for most survivors because their weapons couldn't harm such zombies. Other zombies evolved mainly in agility, without terrifying physical growth, focusing on their limbs and deadly claws. The key was that this type of zombie could hang and climb on walls and even ceilings using their sturdy limbs and scythe-like claws. Their muscles acted like springs, possessing tremendous jumping ability and fast movement speed. With agile bodies and bizarre postures, they could easily maneuver in mid-air. Human survivors found it challenging to hit these zombies. But more importantly, this zombie's human-like tongue also underwent mutation. It could stretch and retract at will, destroy bricks and stones, and possess tremendous offensive power. Ji Rushue clearly remembered that the commander of a survivor camp she joined in her previous life was extremely powerful. But due to inexperience in dealing with such strange zombies, he was ambushed by the horror tongue just as he was about to decapitate one. Because of its peculiarity, survivors also called this type of zombie liquor. The focus was on its flexible and terrifying tongue. Besides, some zombies evolved to have bones spreading from their spine, and with further evolution, these bones could grow membranes to form bone wings, allowing them to fly. There were also extremely rare elemental zombies, who could strike with elemental attacks like human awakeners. For example, wind blades, fireballs, and ice spikes would cause great trouble for human survivor camps later on. Even in the early stages of these special zombie evolutions, obvious features would appear on their bodies. Yet, this zombie father feeding her looked completely ordinary. Even after mutating from the blood moon, nothing particularly noticeable had changed. Thinking of this, Rushua inevitably felt a bit disappointed. She had hoped to see a different father today. After all, everyone hopes their loved ones have enough strength. Surviving in the apocalypse is extremely difficult, and without enough strength, one could be eliminated easily. However, Rushua had faith in her zombie father. After all, it was evident that her father was quite special, retaining human consciousness. This was incredibly rare in the apocalypse, and even as an empress in the previous life, Rushua had never encountered such a being. Rushua had hoped to witness some unique phenomena, but it seems there won't be an opportunity now. Only through continuous evolution could one survive in this world. And only in the initial stages of zombie apocalypse do these most ordinary first-tier zombies hold some form of deterrence, possibly scaring ordinary survivors. But later on, without evident evolutionary prowess, such zombies merely served as cannon fodder, remaining mediocre in strength. Rushua secretly lamented in her heart, "Poor zombie dad. Once I grow up, let me be the one to protect you." Although Rushua has experienced the harsh apocalypse, she still holds on to her own principles. To Rushua, the end of the world doesn't mean abandoning her humanity, and living rationally in the apocalypse doesn't mean becoming absolutely cold-blooded. Even in her past life, Rushua was someone who always repaid kindness and settled debts. What's more, now that she has been reborn and turned into a defenseless baby unable to care for herself. If she hadn't encountered this somewhat peculiar zombie father, Rushua could fully imagine her subsequent fate, either torn to shreds by zombies or slowly starving to death lying alone in a crib. It can be said that this zombie father is not only her lifesaver, but has even shown her parental nurturing. How many mindless zombies, driven solely by bloodlust, can suppress their urges when confronted with living humans, even going so far as to diligently gather various supplies for a human baby, making baby formula to feed her. Rushua always repays kindness, especially something as monumental as this. Even if this zombie father might be very mediocre, merely an ordinary low-level zombie, it doesn't matter. Rushua has secretly made up her mind that, no matter what, she will protect him for life. "You raise me when I'm small, and I'll care for you when you're old," should never just be empty words. Moreover, as the reborn Rushua, she knows many ways zombies can evolve. The primary way most zombies evolve is by devouring living creatures, using the blood and energy of others for strength. For example, zombies consuming humans or other creatures, which is, to some extent, an instinct of biological evolution. Aside from that, there's another method, by seizing crystal cores formed in the brains of fellow zombies. Those unique zombies who have awakened extraordinary abilities form a distinct crystal core in their minds, regardless of their kind. This crystal core becomes the main core of a zombie's abilities. However, only successfully awakened zombies can have a crystal core. Ordinary zombies do not have them. If the vast masses of low-level zombies could all form crystal cores, the situation humans would face would be terrifying. Rushua has made a plan. Though her father's physique is rather mediocre, that's not a problem, since she's the Empress. Rushua is very confident in her strength and future prospects. She had to advance step by step in her past life to carve out a place in the apocalypse and achieve the position of Empress. Reborn now, with experience and memories, She has even gained a powerful awakening ability. Rushue believes that in this life, she will only grow faster and stronger than in her past life. At worst, when she grows stronger, she'll just go and seize the crystal cores from those other evolved zombies. Rushue has decided that even if she has to pile up crystal cores, she will elevate her father to a high-level zombie. Once he reaches a high level, zombies undergo great changes, having gained language skills and no longer only roaring like other zombies. The most crucial part is the physical transformation upon breaking through to higher levels. By then, they can regrow human bodies, almost no different from humans. Don't worry, my zombie father. I'm a potential investment, and nurturing me won't result in a loss for you. While thinking, Rushue subconsciously licked the milk stains at the corner of her mouth. So delicious. Chuan wasn't aware of the little one's thoughts, just found it amusing how she stared at him so intently. The big eyes, with pupils distinctly black and white, looked incredibly cute. Whether in the past life or this life, this is the first time Chuan has watched an infant so closely. He suddenly discovered that these babies seem to naturally carry a hope for life, making people want to indulge in it. Little one, just grow up peacefully, no need to worry about the outside world. I've found 2 new bodyguards for you. They're guarding downstairs now. They don't eat, drink, require accommodation, or insurance. Most importantly, they are in excellent physical condition, won't get sick, and won't be absent from duty. With them, our life will be much safer. Chuan simply sat by the bed, quietly watching the infant on it. His heart gradually became calm and gentle. Only his pupils were blood red, so Rushue couldn't see any change. Little one, grow up fast. Daddy has brought you lots of toys this time. Barbie dolls, stuffed bears, Thomas the Train, and Transformers. Ahem, the Transformers are for me, but you can play with them if you like. Don't worry about losing motivation playing with toys. I've even brought back practice exams for you, just in case. If nothing else, you could always use them as kindling. Chuan has completely taken this coincidentally picked up little one as his own daughter to raise. Though he's never been in a relationship, nor had kids, Chuan feels like the happiest father at this moment. Unknowingly, his shoulders have begun to bear a new weight called responsibility. And this little porcelain doll-like infant is Chuan's new hope and precious treasure. Suddenly, Chuan realized he hasn't even named this little one since he picked her up. Since she's human, she should have her own name. Chuan felt a bit clueless, having never considered naming a child before. As for the surname, it's simple. Being his daughter, she'll take his surname. Lu what? Chuan ran through all sorts of poems and words he had memorized from his past life in his mind. Yet, in his rush, he couldn't come up with a good name, until he glanced out the window and suddenly made up his mind. Since we're living on the 7th floor, and this is our first home in this world, I'll call you Lu Chi-Chi. Your nickname will be Chi-Chi. No matter what happens in the future, as long as we think of your name, we'll remember the good times living together in this little 7th floor home. From a down-and-out youth to a father, Chuan's mindset has changed. He no longer lives aimlessly just for himself. Chi-Chi, don't worry, Daddy will ensure you grow up carefree. In this apocalypse, Daddy will create a sanctuary for you. Chuan looked at the results of his efforts from the night and nodded with satisfaction. The various storage spaces and open areas in the room were now filled with all sorts of supplies he had brought over. Even with Chi-Chi's considerable appetite, it was definitely enough to last him a long time. After all, no matter how much the little guy could eat, at the end of the day, he was just a baby and could only drink formula every day. With plenty of supplies prepared, Chuan decided to stay at home for a while. In the apocalypse, survival is key. Moreover, given that he has awakened an ability to control zombies, it means this world is far from as simple as he had imagined. Chuan could understand that the individual zombie's physical abilities could strengthen over time or with constant devouring. But being able to control zombie actions completely defied the laws of biological nature. The blood moon hanging high last night made Chuan feel deeply uneasy. He had changed, and it was hard to guarantee that other zombies wouldn't as well. No one knew what strange powers zombies might have after evolving. so Lu Chuan decided to lie low for a while. After all, having just reincarnated in this world and then being attacked by zombies, Lu Chuan didn't feel that his luck was particularly good. After feeding Chi-Chi, Lu Chuan decided to observe the building for a while before considering going out after confirming the outside world was safe. Anyway, he had already gathered a lot of supplies and didn't mind staying a few more days. This world is really unfamiliar, changing in peculiar ways every moment. If it were just myself, I'd accept this neither human nor ghostly life. But now that there's Chi-Chi, I must become stronger. Lu Chuan went to the living room and picked up a steel machete about half a meter long. He had found it in a room on the 6th floor while sweeping through the building earlier. According to Lu Chuan's memory of this city, it also prohibited control knives. Who knows what the previous owner of that place did for a living to have such a long machete, and a very sharp one at that. The straight back and heavy blade made it very suitable for long periods of hacking, typical of a chopping knife. However, clearly, the previous set of rules didn't apply in this apocalypse. After a night of the Blood Moon mutation, besides his ability to control other zombies, Lu Chuan's physical fitness had also improved significantly. His body's agility was no different from an ordinary human, whereas before, his limbs were stiff, only capable of simple actions. But now he could swing the machete fluidly, with the blade flashing silver arcs in the air. Though Lu Chuan had never practiced any specific knife skills as a zombie, his physical strength surpassed ordinary humans. At this moment, he wielded the machete with powerful and swift movements. Lu Chuan began to practice knife techniques in the living room, following moves he remembered from martial arts novels and movies. The machete cut through the air with a whooshing sound as it sliced, producing a sound of slicing through the air. Looking at the machete, Lu Chuan was very pleased. Its sharp edge made it an excellent close combat weapon. The machete's lethality far exceeded that of a crowbar. Lu Chuan felt confident that he could cleave a zombie's head in half with a single stroke of the machete. The difference between humans and other animals is that humans can learn to use tools. All those zombies on the street don't know how to use weapons and only know to tear with teeth and claws. But Lu Chuan was different. With human consciousness, he naturally had to master this more scientific and advanced way of fighting. Lu Chuan was confident that with a knife in hand, he could at least fight several zombies at once. While Lu Chuan was practicing his knife skills, Ji Ruxue, after resting for a while, regained her telekinesis and began to ponder her talent abilities. In this life, Ji Ruxue had two very powerful powers: time control. It was something she had from her previous life, already very familiar with, requiring no practice to release as long as she had enough telekinetic power. The other was the telekinesis control she had newly awakened, which required practice over time to master. Ji Ruxue concentrated intensely, focusing on a silver needle on the nightstand. Under Ji Ruxue's telekinetic control, the silver needle slowly floated into the air. Following Ji Ruxue's gestures, the needle drew a path in the air. The silver needle hovered above Ji Ruxue's head, looking utterly incredible. It was like a scene from a sci-fi movie, incomprehensible and unthinkable. Although Ji Ruxue's current telekinetic control was slow, she was confident that with enough practice, it would become an invisible killer technique over time. As her telekinetic power increased, the weight of the objects she could control would also increase over time. It was a needle now, but perhaps one day she could control flying knives. And like that, time flew by, and 2 days passed. In those 2 days, Lu Chuan practiced knife skills in the living room. Ji Ruxue practiced her sky-controlling power in the bedroom, both living very fully, striving for a better life for each other. One day, after feeding Ji Ruxue, Lu Chuan noticed something stirring outside. Lu Chuan looked out the balcony window and saw on the street 2 zombies tearing into each other. The commotion of their fight was loud enough for Lu Chuan on the 7th floor to hear. Lu Chuan was puzzled, as he didn't see any humans around those 2 zombies. Having spent a month among them, Lu Chuan knew these creatures fairly well. Zombies are ruthless, like emotionless killing machines. But they only act when humans are around. Typically, zombies don't attack each other except for competing over food. But there was clearly no food being contested below. This was why Chuan was so shocked to see the zombies fighting. It went beyond all he understood until now. These two zombies seem a bit off. Chuan, observing the battle from the rooftop, suddenly noticed that these two zombies seemed different from those he usually saw. However, the 7th floor was too high to see clearly. He could only vaguely see that one had a somewhat larger physique, seemingly more robust than a typical zombie. The other was smaller in stature, but much faster than an ordinary zombie. This peculiar phenomenon made Chuan feel a surge of caution for no apparent reason, and he quickly descended to about the 4th floor height. At this position, he was finally able to see clearly what was happening below. Only then did Chuan notice that these two zombies were completely different from those he encountered on ordinary days. One of the zombies had a physique nearly 2 meters tall, with an extremely robust body. It was akin to a burly strongman type, and when it swung its muscular fists, even car doors on the roadside were dented by it. Such formidable strength made Chuan click his tongue in amazement. Chuan had no doubt that if he faced this zombie, he would be thoroughly done for if it landed a punch on him. On the opposite side of this robust zombie, the other zombie's torso was relatively slender. However, it was clear that its claws were quite sharp. Ordinary zombies, even when using claws and teeth in combat, weren't much different from humans. Due to the zombie virus, even human bodies could experience decay issues. Yet this somewhat slim zombie had claws akin to 5 daggers, leaving 5 scratches on a car's body with a gentle swipe. Watching these two powerful zombies fight from inside the building, Chuan felt a wave of fear. In recent days, he had been worried that the blood moon might have some effect on other zombies, so he hadn't gone out. In retrospect, his decision was exceedingly wise. The combat capability of these two zombies far exceeded his own. Chuan noticed that the more robust zombie, though lacking the terrifying claws of the other, had exceptionally resilient arms. Those arms seemed to be made of steel, producing a sound like metal clashing when facing off against the other zombie. Chuan found it hard to imagine what kind of physiological structure these two zombies had, entirely on a different level from him. Having practiced his sword skills these past days, Chuan was confident that he could easily kill an ordinary zombie. However, the two zombies downstairs now were a real eye-opener for Chuan. If Jirushue were present, she would have identified the types of these two zombies. One was a tank zombie with a robust build, and the other was an agile type. These were relatively common types among evolved zombies. They were also the zombies that survivors found particularly troublesome during the early stages of the apocalypse. Although Chuan didn't know the evolution types of these zombies, he could judge that they, like him, had undergone some evolution during the Blood Moon Night. However, it was clear that their evolutionary paths were different. For instance, he could control the zombies' actions, which was a mental evolution, whereas in personal combat, he had only slightly enhanced himself compared to before, far from reaching this terrifying level of evolution. These two zombies evidently followed a personal combat route with different evolutionary paths. One had a stronger and tougher physique, while the other was agile with a strong attack. Either one of these zombies was a disaster for ordinary zombies, capable of easily slaughtering large numbers. Chuan was immensely grateful for his caution. If he hadn't stayed indoors this long, he might have foolishly been killed by these two zombies or others like them. After all, Chuan's ability was telekinesis, not comparable in close combat. As it stands, the world is far more terrifying than he had imagined. Chuan's mind grew increasingly heavy. His recent pride from evolution needed to be tempered with an understanding of the cruel reality of the world. But Chuan was curious about why these two zombies suddenly started fighting, as same species generally wouldn't cannibalize each other. At least until now, Chuan hadn't encountered zombies that would eat each other. This was his first time seeing such a phenomenon. Could all the zombies outside have gone mad with hunger now? That can't be. Zombie meat is so unappetizing. As a zombie himself, Chuan didn't find his own meat to have any appealing taste. His blood had long dried up. Eating zombies was no better than chewing on jerky. Bang! 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 The commotion from the two zombies fighting downstairs grew louder, crushing several nearby cars. A trace of gravity flashed in Chuan's eyes as he saw that a conclusion was near. The robust tank zombie needed only to swing its arms to cause enormous destruction. The agile zombie, though powerful, couldn't break through the opponent's defense. Moreover, its weakened body couldn't withstand even a single punch, while its own attacks merely managed to pierce the opponent's arm, unable to go all out in battle. Finally, after a chaotic skirmish, the tank zombie swung its fists fiercely, sending the agile zombie flying. Then, the robust tank zombie, moving like a charging off-road vehicle, instantly appeared before the agile zombie. That massive fist was incomparable to the agile zombie's slender torso, unable to withstand the tank zombie's attack. In just a few blows, the tank zombie broke the agile zombie's spine. Bam! Another fierce punch shattered the agile zombie's head, ending its life completely. The tremendous force of the blow flattened both the agile zombie and the car beneath, causing Chuan to shiver involuntarily. At this point, Chuan noticed that, after the victory, the tank zombie pulled out a white crystal core from the other zombie's head with its massive hand. "What is this?" Seeing the white crystal core, an inexplicable desire surged in Chuan's heart, an intense longing for this item. Although Chuan didn't know what it was, he felt that his body instinctively craved it. It seemed that consuming the crystal core would greatly benefit his own body. Could it be that the battle between these two zombies was to seize the crystal core inside each other's heads? Chuan noticed the hulking zombie pounding its chest and letting out deep roars after consuming the white crystal core. Chuan could hear the extreme excitement in those roars. Bang! 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 It seemed this white crystal core contained considerable power, making this brawny zombie incredibly excited, and he wildly smashed the surrounding parked cars. The zombie stood in place roaring a few times, its voice exceptionally loud. Some ordinary zombies nearby stopped in their tracks upon hearing the noise, then all chose to back away, instinctively feeling fear toward this brawny zombie. After a brief outburst of emotion, the brawny zombie walked into a store opposite. Chuan waited a long time, but never saw it come out, though he could faintly hear the zombie's roars from inside the store. Chuan guessed that this zombie had probably hidden away to digest the power of that white crystal core. Though Chuan didn't know what this white crystal core was, seeing this situation, he was entirely sure that the crystal core was beneficial to zombies. Recalling the primal desire within him earlier, Chuan felt somewhat agitated now. After becoming a zombie, Chuan had felt that craving for flesh and blood. Upon seeing humans, he instinctively wanted to bite, but for some reason, Chuan retained human consciousness. Faced with human willpower, this desire for flesh was nothing to fear. Over time, Chuan had nearly lost all sense of desire for flesh. Yet just now, Chuan found that upon seeing the white crystal core, that primal desire far surpassed his dependency on flesh. Chuan guessed that eating other zombies' crystal cores would surely bring tremendous benefits. Perhaps these crystal cores could enhance abilities gained from zombie evolution. If so, it would explain why such terrifying battles erupted between these two vastly different-sized zombies with unique powers. That is, they both wanted to enhance their strength by devouring each other. Reflecting on the desire that white crystal core stirred within him, Chuan narrowed his eyes. If I could eat this big guy's crystal core, maybe I could control more zombie followers. Currently, Chuan's telekinesis wasn't powerful, with the limit being controlling only these two zombies. Having now witnessed the changes in the post-apocalyptic world, Chuan earnestly wanted to increase his own strength. Even if not for himself, he had to strive to become strong for Chi-Chi. But the problem was the special ability gained from his evolution was controlling zombies. Though his physique had changed somewhat, it couldn't compare to the two downstairs at all. The hulking zombie had an incredibly strong build, containing tremendous power, its arms as tough as steel. And the zombie whose spine and head it crushed had a rather skinny frame, yet was extremely quick, especially those claws that made Chuan shudder. Compared to these two zombies, clearly enhanced for physical and combat capabilities, Chuan was obviously no match. Chuan had no doubt that if he took a punch from that zombie, he'd be done for. Brute force confrontation was certainly unwinnable, and the current approach could only rely on wit to win. Chuan fell into contemplation, but when his gaze shifted to the kitchen's gas tank, his eyes lit up, a plan taking form. Yet Chuan didn't act rashly. Plotting for the crystal core had to be done slowly. After all, his desire to become strong was to ensure Chi-Chi could continue to grow healthily in this world. If he messed up and died at the hands of the big guy, little Chi-Chi would have no one to care for her, and he couldn't put the cart before the horse. Lying on the bed, Ji Rushua naturally heard the tremendous commotion outside, although constrained by her current body. Inhibiting sight of what was happening downstairs, she could guess the general situation after her rebirth. After the blood moon night, the world ushered in an evolutionary climax. Not only did humans awaken their innate talents, but some powerful beings were also born among the zombies. The other animals that survived the corpse tide began transforming into fierce beasts following the blood moon. To continuously evolve, zombies and fierce beasts started to slaughter and devour each other. And human survivors no longer just fled in panic. Post-blood moon, they had developed the ability to confront zombies. At the same time, humans began to acquire crystal cores from zombies and fierce beasts for studying and developing genetic potions to enhance themselves. However, these genetic potions for enhancing extraordinary genes were merely the early products of the global blood moon mutation. Before Ji Rushue's past life's rebirth, humanity had developed far more powerful cultivation techniques. With these cultivation techniques, humanity could more perfectly and efficiently enhance their own strength. And Ji Rushue, as the unparalleled Empress among humans, practiced the topmost cultivation technique in her past life, the glazed breathing technique. In her past life, after going through an extremely difficult and prolonged struggle in the initial stages, she relied on her formidable innate talent to repeatedly carve a bloody path. And then, through this powerful cultivation technique, step by step, she achieved the status of Empress. Now that the wave of evolution had begun, Ji Rushua knew well that relying on her zombie father's ordinary low-tier zombie power, it was nearly impossible to survive in an increasingly cruel environment. Ji Rushua understood that she had to quickly enhance her strength. She needed to both protect her zombie father and have enough strength to safeguard herself. Fortunately, the memories and cultivation techniques from her past life weren't forgotten due to rebirth. While she was currently a baby, she could still practice the glazed breathing technique. After the blood moon night, the world went through mutations, and the air was filled with a large amount of energy factors. These energy factors floated in the air, subtly transforming many creatures. For instance, the various evolutions after the blood moon were related to these energy factors. However, human survivors in the early apocalypse were still stuck in pre-apocalypse thinking, focusing on genetic potions research without learning to harness this power. Later, appropriate breathing techniques were developed to absorb the energy factors in the air. As Ji Rushue engaged in the glazed breathing technique, her small body began a subtle tremor. Her breathing became rhythmic, steady, and long, with the energy factors in the air slowly entering her body with her unique breathing technique. Whether it was zombies or fierce beasts, they all relied on devouring each other to strengthen themselves. In the later stages of the apocalypse, humans mastered this more efficient cultivation method. Ji Rushue was very grateful to be reborn in the later stages. Otherwise, with this infant body, surviving in this apocalyptic world would have been a problem. With each breath, a large amount of energy factors surged in, making Ji Rushue's bones increasingly resilient and her flesh more condensed. Especially since Ji Rushue was an infant, her telekinesis was currently very weak, but now was continuously strengthening thanks to these energy factors. By the time Chuan returned to the bedroom from downstairs, Ji Rushue was still immersed in her cultivation. Chuan was unaware that Ji Rushue was cultivating. Seeing little Chi-Chi lying on the bed and trembling all over, Chuan was extremely worried. Could it be that she caught a cold at night? A baby's illness is a big problem. Chuan hurriedly grabbed a quilt from the side and gently covered little Chi-Chi. If a baby got sick before the apocalypse, they could still go to the hospital for treatment. But now, in this apocalyptic world, where would there still be a children's hospital? Only bloodthirsty zombies. Feeling the movement on her body, Ji Rushue was startled awake from her cultivation. Opening her eyes, she saw the quilt covering her and the worried-eyed zombie father standing beside her, which made Ji Rushue find it a bit funny. She had just begun cultivating the glazed breathing technique, and her body would slightly tremble with the influx of energy factors with each breath in the early stages, which is a perfectly normal phenomenon. But clearly, in the eyes of the zombie father, he probably thought she had caught a cold and covered her with a quilt out of worry. A smile appeared on Ji Rushue's face, and her eyes became very gentle. Looking at the zombie with a somewhat pale complexion and blood-red pupils in front of her, Ji Rushue wasn't afraid at all, but felt a warm current flowing through her heart. In her previous life, Ji Rushue grew up in an orphanage and had learned self-reliance and independence early, only completing her college education through scholarships and subsidies. The warmth and coldness of human relationships, the sour, sweet, bitter, and salty, only Ji Rushue knew. Now, having a second chance at life wasn't easy, but the parents she was reborn to perished at the onset of the apocalypse. Ji Rushue felt the warmth of paternal love for the first time, even though the other party was a zombie. Seeing little Chi was fine and smiling happily at him, Chuan finally felt at ease. Unknowingly, Chuan realized his emotions were already deeply influenced by this little one. Looking at the little one's eyes full of gentleness, Chuan couldn't help but reveal a slight smile. In this decaying, apocalyptic world, such a hopeful baby is undoubtedly the greatest encouragement to people. Seeing little Chi-Chi was all right, Chuan then started pondering on how to deal with that zombie outside. This massive zombie was opposite him. Chuan had to figure out a way to eliminate it. Otherwise, having such a dangerous presence living nearby always made him feel uneasy. This robust zombie could even smash a car, and Chuan didn't think the old iron door downstairs could stop it. Moreover, having devoured the white crystal core, its strength might keep increasing. God knows to what extent this creature will grow in the future. Chuan decided he must strike first, whether to devour the crystal core and become stronger or to eliminate this potential threat. He had to give it a shot. Evening fell and night descended. But from the dim shop across the street, a zombie roar echoed from time to time. This roar was different from ordinary zombies. It was deep and full of oppression. The wandering zombies, upon hearing this, instinctively distanced themselves as if they feared encountering something terrifying. In the shop, the robust zombie Chuan had seen earlier was even stronger than during the day. Originally close to 2 meters tall, its height had risen to about 2 meters 3, and its arms had thickened again. Boom! Just as this zombie was digesting the crystal core's power, a loud noise came from the shop's entrance. Interrupted by the noise, the gigantic zombie was instantly furious, pounding its chest and stepping outside. Its bloodthirsty eyes were filled with violence and slaughter, eager to unleash the magnificent power and rage within its body. Roar! Roar! On the empty street was a low-level zombie, standing still, constantly roaring at the tank zombie. If you look closely at this low-level zombie, you'd find its blood-red pupils were hollow. Roar! The tank zombie pounded its chest, letting out an extremely loud roar. its voice several times louder than that of the low-level zombie. Even Chuan, hiding in the shadows, couldn't help but feel a chill. Wow, this big guy's aura is unusually strong. Good thing I was prepared ahead and used a corpse puppet. Chuan was eager to gain more power, so he decided to finish off this zombie first. But for safety's sake, Chuan sent out a corpse puppet to provoke it. Chuan controlled the low-level zombie with his mind, picking up a flower pot by the roadside and tossing it right onto the big guy's head. Taking advantage of the tank zombie's moment of surprise, Chuan controlled the zombie to turn and run. Roar! The tank zombie roared towards the sky, its eyes burning with rage. As a successfully evolved zombie, it no longer even considered these ordinary low-level zombies. But unexpectedly, it was provoked by one, prompting an immediate chase after Chuan's corpse puppet. Controlled by Chuan, the numbers 1 corpse puppet quickly lured this massive guy to a shop a bit farther away. Chuan had long prepared 2 unscrewed gas tanks there, and the entire shop was filled with leaking gas. Boom! The number 1 corpse puppet barely ran into the shop when the tank zombie charged in, its massive size crashing inside. Its enormous fist smashed Chuan's corpse puppet to pieces. Boom, boom, boom. The tank zombie seemed to be venting its anger, relentlessly smashing the corpse puppet's body. When Chuan controlled the number 2 corpse puppet to enter, the tank zombie was still beating the corpse, and the number 1 corpse puppet was smashed to bits. Chuan manipulated the number 2 zombie to enter the shop and shut the slightly bent door behind it, then took out a lighter. Boom! A massive explosion rang out, rapidly igniting the 2 gas tanks in the shop, casting a fiery glow against the night. The tank zombie, taking the brunt of the explosion, let out a series of shrill roars in the sea of flames. As it struggled out of the shop with all its might, it collapsed at the doorway. The zombie's entire body was charred black by the raging flames, like a piece of coal. In the instant of the explosion, Chuan withdrew his consciousness from the 2 corpse puppets in time, so he wasn't particularly affected. The fierce fire inside the shop continued to burn intensely, illuminating the surrounding area brightly even during the night. The explosive power of these 2 gas tanks made Chuan jump. Chuan breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had chosen a spot a bit further from the residential buildings. Otherwise, he might have been caught by the blast wave. The most critical aspect is the loud noise created by the explosion, along with the very conspicuous blazing fire. A few zombies nearby were attracted by the commotion, but maybe the oppressive aura of this massive zombie was too overwhelming. So average low-level zombies only lingered in the distance, not daring to approach for the time being. Chuan didn't rush out directly, but continued to remain in the shadows, waiting. The impact brought by the earlier battle with this massive zombie was so shocking that Chuan didn't dare to go forward immediately. After all, a centipede dies but never falls down. What if this zombie wasn't fully dead and punched him directly? That would be the end for him. Perhaps some fat still remained on the zombie, so the flames continued to burn this massive zombie relentlessly. After a good 10 minutes, with the zombie immobile despite being burned, Chuan finally confirmed it was likely truly dead and dared to approach cautiously. Upon closer inspection, the zombie had been burned beyond recognition by the fierce fire, and coupled with the massive impact of the gas tank explosion, its body suffered severe damage. The pungent stench of burning flesh pervaded the air, and thick black smoke continuously wafted from the zombie's body. If a human came close and inhaled such smoke, they might feel dizzy, but fortunately, Chuan, as a zombie, was unaffected by all this. The appearance of the zombie at this moment was rather unflattering. Without a word, Chuan swung the machete to break open the zombie's skull. Chuan discovered that after the zombie's evolution, its surface defense was significantly strengthened compared to ordinary low-level zombies. Even for this charred corpse, he had to exert a lot of effort to break open the back of its head. With a slashing sound, as the blade forcefully split the other skull in two, Chuan indeed found a unique crystal core amidst the bloody brain matter. However, this crystal core was different from the one he saw during the day. instead of pure white, it had some red in it. Moreover, Chuan noticed that the temptation from this crystal core was even stronger than during the day. Although Chuan didn't know what these things exactly were, the zombie instincts told him that this red-tinted crystal core was definitely more beneficial to zombies than this morning's pure white one. It's possible that the pure white crystal cores are the basic crystal cores born after these zombies evolve. And when these zombies complete their mutual devouring and further enhance their powers, the crystal cores become tinged with red, and if all of them turn red, wouldn't it make them even stronger? Although Chuan didn't understand the rules of zombie evolution in the apocalypse, he could speculate some basic patterns after observation. What surprised Chuan more was that this massive zombie was already so formidable. How terrifying would it become if it continued to evolve? As he watched more and more zombies being drawn by the flames, Chuan quickly stashed away the crystal core. Then he chose 2 fully intact, limbed zombies from the ones wandering over, made them his new underlings, and after reconnecting 2 corpse puppets, Chuan swiftly returned to the neighborhood. He assigned these 2 new corpse puppets to guard the entrance downstairs while Chuan went alone to the 3rd floor. Holding the unique crystal core in his hand, Chuan increasingly felt the desire to devour it. His body craved this crystal core instinctively. After ensuring the safety of his surroundings, Chuan no longer suppressed his inner desire and swallowed it down in one go. The next second, Chuan felt the crystal core dissolve instantly within him, and a surge of powerful energy flooded into his entire being. This energy constantly tempered Chuan's body, gradually transforming his decomposed skin towards a more human-like form. However, Chuan noticed that after devouring the crystal core, he didn't gain any special abilities like the 2 zombies he had observed in battle previously. He didn't develop blade-like claws similar to the agile zombie, nor did he possess the robust muscles or defenses of the giant zombie. If viewed from the outside, his appearance was less grotesque and fearsome than before. His physical strength, agility, and stamina had improved slightly compared to previously. Yet Chuan felt his brain was akin to having a massive explosion. Vast energies surged into his mind, briefly causing a period of dizziness. Undergoing the crystal core evolution, Chuan couldn't help but let out a few roars. Downstairs, the wandering zombies trembled slightly upon hearing Chuan's roar, then slowly retreated into the distance. After the evolution, Chuan felt his mind had become extremely clear, and his 5 senses seemed sharper than before. The most crucial aspect was that Chuan found controlling zombies was now even easier. With just a bit of thought, Chuan understood the specific reason. It was likely that different zombies would awaken different talent powers, and it was obvious that he had primarily enhanced his mental abilities. The 2 zombies he saw today were melee combat types, one enhancing strength and defense, the other enhancing agility. Excitedly, Chuan ran to the street for a trial, discovering his telekinetic powers had doubled, allowing him to control up to 5 zombies simultaneously. Most importantly, Chuan discovered he gained a new ability, enabling him to share the vision of corpse puppets. Before advancing, Chuan could only control these corpse puppets within his sight, but now he could control them remotely after evolution. Chuan was extremely excited. With this ability, he no longer needed to venture out personally to accomplish tasks, as his henchmen could be remotely commanded to do so. This method was extremely convenient and greatly enhanced his survival capability. However, there remained a distance limitation for corpse puppet control. After testing, Chuan's telekinetic range now extended to a maximum of 1,000 meters. It meant that within a radius of 1,000 meters, Chuan wouldn't need to act personally. He could complete tasks simply by remotely controlling these corpse puppets. In that moment, Chuan suddenly felt a bit like a command system from his past life, with a gaggle of unmanned robots at his disposal. Since I don't need to show up, then killing, arson, robbery, and looting would be much easier. 7th floor bedroom. It's already so late. Why hasn't Zombie Dad come back yet? Jirushua lay on the bed, feeling a bit restless. She had clearly heard the enormous explosion from that shop, as well as the terrifying roar of the evolved zombies earlier. The angry roar of the tank-type zombie in the middle of the night was chilling to hear. Even though Jirushua was a reborn Empress, in her current infant state, facing the strengthened, combat power-enhanced evolved zombie would only lead to one outcome: death. Now, being on the 7th floor, Jirushua wasn't particularly worried about being exposed. However, the zombie dad who hadn't returned yet made her a bit anxious. Ordinary zombies without evolution, encountering these evolved zombies only have one path: death. Even a survivor camp, if lacking enough firepower and preparation, could potentially be wiped out by such tank-type zombies. My zombie dad, please don't get into any trouble. I can't even walk on the ground yet. If something happens to you, I'm done for. Jirushua even began to wonder if her destiny was just destined to be that tough. In both her past life and present life, it seemed she was somewhat unlucky with her parents. At last, now she had a zombie dad who had died once before. She just began to feel the warmth of paternal love. Could it be that she was about to return to a shattered beginning again? Originally, Jirushua was practicing the glazed breathing technique, but now all that appeared to her mind were images of Chuan, making her troubled and unable to calm down to practice. Unconsciously, the father and daughter who accidentally met had already regarded each other as critically important companions in this apocalypse. Clearly, Chuan's eyes were full of blood red, but Jirushua always felt as though she could see the loving kindness of a father through her zombie dad's gaze. She didn't want this hard-won family affection to fade so quickly. Click! At that moment, the sound of the door opening came from outside, and Jirushua instantly breathed a sigh of relief. Ordinary low-level zombies don't understand locks. Only her zombie dad, who retained human consciousness, could do such an odd thing. That's good. Thank goodness nothing happened. A smile appeared on Jirushua's face. Chuan walked in and saw the little one smiling at him. Such a cute sight made him feel as if his heart was warmed. For this little one, even when facing stronger zombies, Chuan felt he possessed enough courage. Chuan went straight to the kitchen and began to prepare formula milk. He had planned out a trap to kill the big zombie, combined with devouring the crystal core, which took quite a bit of time. The little one must be hungry. Thinking about the significant increase in strength today and watching the little one drink milk so sweetly, Chuan felt truly delighted. Though still in an apocalypse now, Chuan increasingly felt hope for his life. This anticipation and expectation for life were completely unparalleled compared to when he spent his previous month in confusion and chaos. Little Chi-Chi be good. Dad's strength has increased again. In the future, I can better protect you and help you survive in this apocalypse. Perhaps it's the continuously strengthening power. Perhaps it's the gradually changing apocalypse. Or perhaps it's the little one's pure and beautiful smile. Chuan felt his somewhat decaying body seemed to emit vast vitality. Although he had become a zombie now, life seemed to have gained new joys. After all, before reincarnation, his life of working overtime every day at the company, going to and fro like a walking corpse, wasn't particularly interesting either. In the 2 days following the increase in strength, Chuan hadn't left building number 5 again. Instead, through telekinesis, he dispatched his corpse puppets nearby to search for supplies. Operating several corpse puppets to work simultaneously was much faster than Chuan himself transporting things. Now Chuan directly turned the rooms on several floors downstairs into his warehouse. All sorts of supplies little Chi-Chi might need now or in the future were completely collected by Chuan. This entire building was treated as Chuan's private property. Not only these baby supplies and foods, but Chuan also collected a lot of tools to deal with zombies. Upon witnessing the fierce battle scenes of those 2 evolved zombies, Chuan also realized that perhaps after that blood moon night, this world, already unfamiliar to him, had changed once more. If he wants to survive better, he must enhance his combat power and make certain defensive preparations. Chuan transported back some gas tanks through his corpse control, obtained fire axes from every closed-off building, beverages that can be ignited to make Molotov cocktails. Even crowbars, shovels, and kitchen knives weren't spared. Whatever was useful was brought back. During this time, Chuan either cared for little Chi-Chi or practiced combat techniques in an empty room himself. Although he basically repeated similar daily routines, Chuan still felt very fulfilled. After all, he could distinctly feel his power continually strengthening. As long as he keeps getting stronger, the chances of surviving in this apocalypse will increase a fraction. Meanwhile, Rushua lay in bed, drinking milk every day and practicing the glazed breathing technique. Now her body was too weak. Rushua had to use the breathing technique to enhance her strength. The energy factor in the air continually improved Rushua's frail body, while also enhancing her somewhat weak telekinesis as a baby. After finishing her training, Rushua slowly exhaled a mouthful of murky air. After a period of practice, her telekinesis had become a bit stronger than before. Hearing faint sounds from the living room, Rushua slightly frowned. Her zombie dad, perhaps because he retained his consciousness from when he was alive, previously would go out to search for supplies at night. But now, it had been 2 days without going out. Thinking back to the battle between evolved zombies 2 days ago, and the unexplained explosions and terrifying zombie howls near the community, Rushua suspected her zombie dad was probably unlucky and had encountered those transcendent zombies that evolved special abilities. After transcendent zombie evolution, just the intense aura alone would already be beyond mere lower-tier zombies. It could be said that evolved zombies and ordinary low-tier zombies, though both are zombies, would gradually split into different species. The suppression of higher-level power was extremely terrifying, and ordinary low-tier zombies could hardly resist this aura. More so, the combat power of evolved zombies far exceeds that of ordinary zombies. Rushua could imagine, as an ordinary low-tier zombie, Zombie Dad should be feeling very scared now. The zombie crisis erupted so suddenly that many people didn't even have time to react before they were devoured by zombies. At the beginning of the apocalypse, everyone thought that ordinary zombies were already the final result of mutation. But no one expected that after the Blood Moon, evolution and mutation began to occur globally. This newly initiated path of evolution caught many people off guard. My zombie dad, as an ordinary unevolved zombie, was at the bottom of the hierarchy in this world of global mutation. Not only would he be killed by human survivors, but he would also be slaughtered by fellow zombies or even those stronger fierce beasts. As a low-level zombie on the front lines, surviving the apocalypse was already extremely difficult. He also had to put effort into supporting himself, taking care of his own needs and safety, which was truly demanding for him. Rushua felt deeply moved in her heart. Even in such difficult circumstances, it seemed her zombie dad had no intention of giving up on her. One must know that in the apocalypse, humanity had become an extremely precious commodity. People who used to be kind could now commit any filthy and despicable act after experiencing the apocalypse's brutal reality. Perhaps a gentleman before the apocalypse could transform into a cold-blooded killer after the fall. It is hard to determine right from wrong. After all, everyone during the apocalypse focused on survival. For many, merely staying alive was the greatest luxury. Even those who were alive, even those with abundant resources and strong defenses in survivor camps, would abandon infants and the elderly to escape when necessary. But her zombie dad had clearly experienced the apocalypse's harshness, transformed into a creature neither human nor ghost, yet he still retained the glory of humanity. Rushua silently gazed at the night sky outside the window, her watery eyes revealing composure and calmness beyond her years. It seemed she needed to speed up her cultivation, as more evolved zombies and fierce beasts would emerge as time progressed. Relying solely on her zombie dad's capabilities, survival in this apocalypse was extraordinarily challenging. With Rushua's breathing exercises, energy continuously entered her body, making her increasingly powerful. Jirushue was eager to become stronger, since it was evident her zombie dad couldn't be relied upon, and she had to depend on herself. Fortunately, after so many days of training, Jirushue had achieved certain accomplishments. The intensity of her telekinesis had significantly increased compared to before. At this moment, driven by Jirushue's telekinesis, a silver needle on the bedside table swiftly flew into the air. Whiz, whiz, whiz. This extremely fine silver needle danced in midair at an incredibly terrifying speed. Equipped with her time control ability, Jirushue was confident she could now kill undetected. Even such a tiny silver needle could pierce a skull with the help of her telekinesis boost. However, Jirushue wasn't complacent about this. Surviving the apocalypse required far more than just a few tricks. As time went on, more powerful zombies and fierce beasts would gradually appear, and she needed to grow stronger to have any hope of survival. In the living room, Chuan was focused on reading a combat textbook. This was what he found when he sent a corpse puppet to search the nearby buildings. The original owner of the room was probably a combat enthusiast, as there were many combat textbooks. They detailed various close combat techniques including sanda, judo, boxing, free fighting, and grappling. Chuan continuously explored and trained according to what he read in the room. Having become a zombie and evolved, Chuan's physical constitution was already superior to ordinary humans. In fact, not many professional fighters' physiques could now surpass that of Chuan. Moreover, his body was no longer as stiff as that of a low-level zombie, making it easier to perform these complex combat moves. Humans differ from other creatures in how they develop and use the brain. These modern combat techniques were scientifically distilled through countless rehearsals in different environments, making for more effective training and attacks on enemies. From his observations during this period, Chuan noticed that zombie attack methods were primitive and violent. Without human wisdom, zombies acted on instinct, primarily using claws or sharp teeth in a series of instinctive attacks. This disorderly attacking method might work against unsuspecting ordinary people, but well-trained combat experts could neutralize the threat. However, even in real-world situations, no matter how skilled a combat champion is, they wouldn't dare easily engage zombies up close. This wasn't because human combat techniques were inferior, but because zombies lack intelligence and don't fear death. Humans are different. They have more concerns because once bitten, they face conversion. Most humans wouldn't take such risks. But Chuan was different. Given he was already a zombie, getting bitten didn't matter, and he didn't fear the so-called zombie virus. Retaining human consciousness, Chuan saw it as his greatest advantage, which must be fully utilized. He differed from other zombies, capable of using weapons most efficiently in battle. Although his evolution was different from other zombies and didn't enhance close combat abilities, this advanced scientific combat method might help bridge the gap in physical prowess. Strength might crush skill, but skill could also manipulate strength. Moreover, many joint lock techniques in martial arts are decisive and efficient, making them extremely effective even against zombies. Furthermore, zombies lack the human drive, which means they cannot learn or defend. They act purely on instinct. Brains triumph over mindlessness. However, Chuan knew that learning from books alone was shallow. He'd read many news stories about martial artists who ended up getting fatally stabbed despite their skills. After mastering some basic combat moves and training for a while, Chuan warmed up as he reached the 6th floor. He maneuvered a corpse puppet into the living room, then lifted his telekinetic control. This corpse puppet became his sparring partner, on which he continuously practiced the combat skills learned during this period. If a zombie knew martial arts, no one could stop it. However, upon initial contact, Chuan found that relying solely on theory and personal exploration really had significant gaps compared to actual combat. Previously, Chuan didn't understand why many people could hit a sandbag with great force, yet easily get knocked down in the ring. It's because the control of distance and the opponent's reactions all require actual combat to hone. Simply punching air or a target doesn't build strong combat experience. After truly engaging in face-to-face combat, Chuan realized that relying purely on his fighting techniques to subdue the opponent was somewhat difficult. The concept of learning from books was clearly ineffective in this context. Fortunately, with zombies who fear nothing as training partners, Chuan applied all sorts of combat techniques on them. Through repeated practice, Chuan's punching speed became faster and faster. His accuracy also improved significantly, allowing him to retaliate while dodging attacks. Practicing combat not only enhances real combat experience, but also improves body coordination. Even if there's no direct confrontation in the future, it would provide an advantage in escape. Bam, bam, bam. Thuds resounded continuously in the living room as the poor zombie incessantly lunged at Chuan with bites. However, what awaited it was Chuan's agile moves. After dodging the zombie's frontal attack, Chuan grabbed its shoulder and executed an over-the-shoulder throw. Bang! As soon as the zombie stood up again, Chuan delivered another back throw, nearly breaking the zombie's spine, even while controlling his strength. Looking at the zombie in front of him, now battered and bloody from the fight, Chuan nodded in satisfaction. By now, the zombie's head was already bruised and bleeding from Chuan's blows. The already loose teeth had been knocked out by Chuan, and the nose, flattened and bleeding black blood, had long been broken. Even the elbows and knees were easily dislocated by Chuan using joint-locking techniques. Now, facing a single ordinary zombie's frontal attack, Chuan can easily and skillfully handle it, even to the point of dominating it. Thanks to this period of training and various combat exercises, Chuan quickly grew from a novice to a fighter with considerable skill. After all, no matter how advanced modern training methods might be, they can't provide partners like zombies who are impervious to pain and death. Chuan felt very satisfied with his current skills. In a one-on-one situation with a regular zombie, further improvement of his combat skills had become challenging. Then Chuan activated telekinesis, preparing to summon another corpse puppet to increase the difficulty. But just then, Chuan felt a sudden shift in his mind, with an astonishing image flashing in his head. Recently, Chuan has been practicing multitasking, honing his combat skills with zombies indoors while dispatching corpse puppets outside to gather resources. Yet in his shared vision, Chuan discovered that the two corpse puppets he sent to collect resources in building one of the Sunshine District had encountered something astonishing. On the third floor of Building 1, two zombies were scavenging for resources, exhibiting strangely human-like behavior. Just then, a bloody silhouette dashed across the ceiling in his view. The speed was terrifying. If not for the marks left on the ceiling, Chuan might have thought he was seeing things. He quickly controlled the corpse puppets to follow. After all, if a corpse puppet dies, it dies. Zombies roamed everywhere, and Chuan didn't care about losing a couple. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The bloody figure moved rapidly across walls and ceilings, so fast that even Chuan's controlled corpse puppets struggled to keep up. Quickly, Chuan maneuvered a corpse puppet to pick up two wooden sticks for defense. Perhaps seeing such peculiar behavior from the two zombies, the figure on the ceiling ceased its movement. Chuan finally saw the bloody figure on the ceiling, and its appearance truly shocked him. This ceiling-clinging zombie seemed to have undergone a bizarre mutation. Its skin appeared somewhat peeled, revealing crimson flesh beneath, incredibly grotesque. While ordinary zombies already looked terrifying, this ceiling clinger was a nightmare among them. This zombie's skull was remarkably absent, leaving its gory brain exposed. Most notably, its gaping mouth housed long, sharp teeth and an unnatural, snake-like red tongue. Both its hands and feet had mutated significantly, now resembling the claws of a fierce beast. However, Chuan noticed that this transformation seemed to impact its spine, rendering the mutated zombie unable to stand, forcing it to crawl on all fours. Yet its terrifying muscles and explosiveness granted it incredible speed, and its claw-like limbs easily climbed walls and ceilings. The bizarre sight startled Lu Chuan, as he never expected such an ugly type of zombie to exist. Most evolved zombies still managed to resemble humanoid creatures, but the bloody figure before him had cast aside all semblance of humanity. From the two corpse puppets, Lu Chuan sensed an overwhelming fear. Clearly, this bloody creature posed a significant threat to ordinary zombies. Lu Chuan immediately controlled the two corpse puppets to barrage forward with their sticks. Yet the terrifying figure clinging to the ceiling leapt with its limbs and, with a flash of its claws, shattered one corpse puppet's skull instantly. Before the second corpse puppet could react, it found a red appendage piercing swiftly through its head and its vision. The speed of this bloody monster was too fast. Even with Lu Chuan's controlled corpse puppets, they were slaughtered without resistance. What kind of monster is this? Returning to his physical sight, Lu Chuan felt lingering fear. Was its long tongue that finished off my corpse puppet just then? Lu Chuan never imagined that a zombie could evolve to disregard human form, even using the body's vulnerable tongue as a weapon. That blood-red tongue shot out so fast that his controlled corpse puppets couldn't even react. Suddenly, Lu Chuan's heart felt exceptionally heavy. It seemed that the capabilities zombies evolved into after the blood moon far exceeded his expectations. Or perhaps zombies like himself, endowed with special abilities, weren't anomalies, and he must proceed with greater caution in the future. Recalling that blood-colored creature capable of walking walls, Lu Chuan felt an immense anxiety, realizing that with his current strength, he could hardly stand against it. Even with 5 corpse puppets swarming against such absolute power, they would likely be decimated in one fell swoop. For now, Lu Chuan could only hope that the creature would not venture into Building 5, where he resided. The blood moon had just begun a few days ago, and already encountering such bizarre zombies made Lu Chuan feel heavy-hearted. Originally, Lu Chuan thought that the burly giant and the agile-type zombie were already considered quite powerful evolved zombies. But now it seemed he had underestimated this strange world. The blood-colored terrifying figure had 2 formidable combat power, and Lu Chuan seriously suspected that even if the giant and the agile zombie joined forces, they would still be instantly killed by that blood-colored figure. Controlling the corpse puppet to make close contact with that blood-colored monster, Lu Chuan felt the death perspective of being killed up close. The oppressive feeling from that bizarre blood-colored figure was extraordinarily strong. Although this peculiar monster zombie no longer had skin, revealing blood-colored muscles, its physical strength was probably not much weaker than the bulky zombie. The key was that its terrifying speed allowed it to easily move quickly, climbing walls and hanging from ceilings. Its powerful strength was one thing, but its tricky attack angles made it extremely hard to defend against. The thing that Lu Chuan feared most was the blood-colored figure's retractable tongue. Lu Chuan never imagined that one day he might be killed by a tongue. Although they were not in the same building now, both were still in the same neighborhood. Lu Chuan had a premonition that he would eventually face that bizarre-shaped zombie. After all, the neighborhood was only so big, it was hard not to encounter it. For a moment, Lu Chuan felt heavy-hearted. The joy of dismantling a zombie while practicing combat techniques was now considerably subdued. Lu Chuan understood that this world was too cruel, and to survive, he must quickly enhance his strength. Though they were all zombies, clearly these bizarre monsters did not understand what it means to leave each other alone. In the coming days, Lu Chuan dared not waste a single moment and practice combat techniques daily. Through actual combat with zombies, he constantly improved his fighting skills using the simplest method to achieve the greatest enhancement. While practicing combat, Lu Chuan also did not forget to dispatch the corpse puppet to continue searching for resources around. However, Lu Chuan now had a new target, which was to find other evolved zombies. He didn't know much about the full-bodied, blood-colored, horrifying zombie that appeared on the first floor. Moreover, such a peculiar monster was very difficult to target, and Lu Chuan did not intend to risk a fruitless effort. Without enough strength to challenge it, it was no different from courting death. However, Zombies like the giant and the agile type that he first encountered were relatively easier to deal with. Though both types of zombies had evolved to some extent, and their combat power had become significantly stronger. For Chuan, a thinking zombie who could control corpse puppets, they were much easier to handle. After several days of experimentation, Chuan had discovered that the crystal core was mostly produced only in the brains of evolved zombies. He had killed quite a few normal zombies over the past days, but found nothing in their brains. Time flew by, and a week passed in the blink of an eye. Bam! 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 On the 6th floor, Chuan was now simultaneously facing an attack from 3 burly zombies. The living room felt a bit cramped due to the growing number of zombies, but within such a tight space, Chuan's body was very agile. Faced with the biting attacks of zombies, Chuan easily evaded using flexible body techniques. At the same time, taking advantage of a gap in the zombie's attack, he punched one zombie in the jaw. Though they had become zombies, knocking out the vagus nerve with a punch had become useless. However, Chuan's punch was powerful, knocking the zombie's head loose and splattering blood. After knocking down one zombie, Chuan ducked and avoided the bite from the zombie behind, simultaneously hugging the zombie in front around the waist. Then, using the horse stance and core strength, he executed a direct suplex and snapped the zombie's neck in half. Crack! The spine broke, rendering the zombie harmless even if it wasn't dead. Facing the last zombie's assault, Chuan seized the opportunity and firmly grabbed its wrist with one hand. Crack! Crack! Using joint lock techniques, Chuan slightly applied force and directly dislocated the zombie's joint. In almost a moment, the 3 ferocious and terrifying zombies now lay motionless on the ground. Either Chuan had knocked off their heads, broken their spines, or dislocated all their joints. The sound of bones cracking in the 6th floor living room would have given everyone goosebumps before the apocalypse erupted, and several ambulances would have had to pull in. Chuan stood in the center of the living room, nodding in satisfaction. The zombies he found were relatively strong, yet he managed to effortlessly defeat them. After these few days of training, he had some accomplishments in combat techniques. At present, many zombies were already piled up outside the gate of Chuan's neighborhood, lying on the ground. These zombies had basically been disassembled into parts when Chuan practiced his combat skills. An excellent sniper is trained with bullets, and likewise, an excellent fighter is honed through real combat. Now Chuan was very confident that if he ventured out and faced zombie attacks, he would have a certain degree of self-defense. Even if he went back to the time before the apocalypse, Chuan was confident that he could easily win a gold belt in freestyle fighting. After all, not even a world boxing champion would dare train as recklessly as he did. 7th floor bedroom. While Chuan was practicing combat skills downstairs, Rushue, as a baby, did not slack off in her own training. Although she was just a baby, unable to take care of herself. Using the glazed breathing technique to constantly inhale and exhale the energy factors of heaven and earth, Rushue's evolution speed was not slow at all. At this moment, as Rushue gathered telekinesis and applied it to herself, her infant-sized body gradually began to float. Although her body had not shown any accelerated growth, her telekinesis had indeed strengthened significantly. After this period of focused cultivation, Rushue's telekinesis could now make her hover about 1 to 2 centimeters off the ground. It must be known that Rushue is just a baby who initially found it exhausting to even move a silver needle. Now she could levitate her body, which was a great progress. For humans, flying through the air is probably everyone's dream. Although Rushue was still unable to achieve this, after continuous practice during this period, she finally acquired some abilities to protect herself in the apocalypse. No way, this is far from enough. Even as just a baby, Rushue's achievement of being able to levitate her body is incredibly terrifying. If those large survivor camps knew about Rushue's situation, they would all swarm to recruit her. After all, A baby capable of awakening talent, power, and levitating in midair is something that sounds miraculous. But Jirushue was not in the slightest complacent. She knew that her current strength was nothing significant. As someone reborn, Jirushue knew that with more evolved zombies and fierce beasts emerging, the wars between them would become more frequent. Humans need to rest after battling each other, but for zombies and fierce beasts, the best way to recover is by devouring each other's crystal cores. The more frequently powerful zombies and fierce beasts devour one another, the faster their evolution will be. To survive in this zombie-infested city, one must possess enough strength to achieve that. The key is that Jirushue knows she is not alone in this. She also has to protect her zombie father. After the blood moon, the zombie father did not undergo any noticeable mutation, obviously just an ordinary zombie. In this post-apocalyptic world of mutations, ordinary low-tier zombies are actually the most unfortunate. Encountering evolved counterparts might lead to being killed, and facing human extraordinary individuals poses an even greater risk of being slain. Without strong enough power, her zombie father might not last long before falling. An ordinary zombie surviving the apocalypse is extremely dangerous. Jirushue must quickly enhance her strength. The noise downstairs keeps booming. What's the zombie father busy with all the time down there? Despite the separation, Jirushue heard the commotion of Chuan training combat techniques with several zombies in the 6th-floor living room. Facing zombies insensitive to pain and fatigue, Chuan showed no mercy, whether in wrestling or punching, causing quite a stir. Though Jirushue worries a bit, because her zombie father hasn't gone out to find supplies for over a week. Solely relying on the remaining resources in the house isn't problematic for now, but eventually it'll run out. Jirushue understands this. Her zombie father is just an ordinary zombie. After all, facing a tremendous gap in power, confronting powerful evolved zombies outside leaves no chance for a counterattack. The zombie father retains human consciousness, so it's normal for him to fear this overwhelming power gap. It's not her zombie father's fault. Blame lies solely on this cruel world. As a former Empress in another life, Jirushue knows well how cruel this apocalypse truly is. With evolution ongoing, individual power strengthening, killing not only hasn't decreased, but has become even more frequent. Without strong enough power, there's simply no qualification to live in this world. Before the blood moon descended, ordinary zombies faced no pressure in living. But now, with the blood moon, numerous zombies and creatures have begun evolving and mutating, leaving ordinary unevolved zombies as cannon fodder. Jirushue clearly remembers in the early apocalypse when corpse tides caused great panic. However, later on, those ordinary zombie-composed corpse tides will easily be wiped out by the strong. Jirushue didn't have much hope for Chuan. After all, low-tier ordinary zombies in this evolved world find it incredibly difficult not to be killed, let alone raising a baby, which is practically an impossible task. Jirushue only hopes she can quickly enhance her power through the glazed breathing technique, wishing she could grow up fast. As a human empress, Jirushue dislikes feeling like a burden or dragging others down. She hopes to rely on strong combat power to protect her zombie father's life and safety. Most importantly, Jirushue doesn't want to lose this rare family connection, even if it's a zombie providing her with kinship. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Jirushue practiced the cultivation technique to intake energy factors while controlling silver needles flying steadily in midair. The speed of the silver needle increased, and so did the force. Given her tiny stature now, relying on her body to move freely is obviously impossible. Jirushue focused on enhancing telekinesis. As her limbs struggled to support her body, she aimed to achieve levitation using telekinesis. Though only slightly hovering 1 or 2 centimeters now, it's a huge progress to Jirushue. At least in this situation, if she falls, she can use telekinesis to catch herself instead of dying from a fall right at the start. After all, as a dignified human empress, dying from falling or starving is quite unseemly. With the cultivation technique in constant operation, Ji Rushue's gaze became increasingly determined. After finishing combat training on the 6th floor, Lu Chuan controlled a corpse puppet to specifically handle the zombies he dismantled. Just as Lu Chuan prepared to go upstairs to feed Chi-Chi, a corpse puppet gathering resources outside made a new discovery. On a nearby street, an evolved zombie with a weakened body but obviously evolved claws and greatly enhanced speed was chasing a panicked human. Lu Chuan immediately recognized the zombie chasing the survivor as the agile-type zombie he witnessed being smashed by a big guy that day. In the corpse puppet's view, this human survivor looked pale, thin, with dry hair and unstable footsteps. During this time, perhaps hiding and eating all stash food led to venturing out to find more. Unfortunately, he was unlucky because soon after leaving, he encountered a zombie. Most crucially, the type of zombie he met was one Lu Chuan had been searching for a long time without finding: an evolved zombie. Though the agile zombie appeared slender, its speed was exceptionally fast. Seeing the agile-type zombie moving like a cheetah, fiercely embedding its claws into nearby car doors, it achieved a perfect drift with inertia. With just a turn, the agile zombie caught up with the unlucky survivor. The maneuver was extremely smooth, leaving Lu Chuan to marvel. Indeed, fast cornering truly indicates speed. Without waiting for the survivor to resist, the agile-type zombie's claws slashed and immediately ended his life. Great opportunity. Lu Chuan's eyes lit up. He had been seeking evolved zombies to obtain more crystal cores but had been unable to find any. He immediately dispatched a corpse puppet to follow and monitor the opponent. Ever since he consumed the crystal core and felt the rush of surging energy, Lu Chuan couldn't suppress his inner desire to become stronger. So, during this time, Lu Chuan has been training his fighting skills to enhance his close combat ability and self-protection. Meanwhile, he dispatched corpse puppets to search for materials and track down evolved zombies. Lu Chuan understood in his heart that since these mutated zombies were born, given time, they will certainly evolve into something extremely powerful. The saying goes, a slow start means a slow journey thereafter. If he cannot find a way to catch up with the footsteps of the evolved zombies in the early stage, he might become cannon fodder and be devoured. However, at this stage, the number of evolved zombies may not be very high. Currently, Lu Chuan encounters mostly ordinary zombies wandering endlessly on the streets. He searched for several days without encountering one, and today he finally came across one. He wouldn't let it pass easily. He kept one corpse puppet at a certain distance, closely monitoring the movements of this agile zombie. The remaining 4 zombies put down their original tasks, grabbed sharp and heavy fire axes, and quickly headed towards the location of the agile-type zombie. The 4 zombies holding long axes marched with a menacing aura, just like the Axe Gang parading down the street. The scene looked truly terrifying. If a survivor saw this, they would probably be shocked speechless. After all, they had never seen zombies actively use weapons. It was simply defying natural order. Soon Lu Chuan's 5 corpse puppets gathered together, each holding a fire axe, ready for battle. Each one glared with blood-red eyes, poised and ready to attack, creating an extremely oppressive presence. Lu Chuan didn't act rashly but ordered the 5 zombies to stagger, pretending to casually walk towards the agile-type zombie. Lu Chuan had the zombies spread out slightly, as having 5 axe-wielding zombies together would be conspicuous unless someone was foolish. Moreover, with fire axes in hand, gathering together isn't conducive to combat. However, Lu Chuan wasn't stupid enough to completely disperse the zombies, as he intended to encircle the agile-type zombie, not face a bulky zombie. If they dispersed too far, they might be taken out one by one before their axes even touched the opponent. After killing the human survivor, the agile-type zombie feasted on fresh meat. As the apocalypse progressed, the number of catchable survivors dwindled. Most zombies wandered aimlessly on the streets each day to conserve energy. A large number of humans were killed or turned into zombies initially, while a small number of survivors learned survival skills after early blind escapism. Thus, capturing fresh blood was difficult. If not for the survivor running out of stored food, they wouldn't risk searching for supplies. The agile-type zombie hadn't tasted fresh human meat for many days, and the scent of blood was delectable. Crunch! Crunch! The zombie gnawed at the meat recklessly, while nearby zombies, drawn by the noise, instinctively headed over. Roar! Roar! Facing ordinary low-level zombies, the agile-type zombie roared a few times, intimidating many zombies from approaching with its overpowering presence. Only then did the zombie contentedly continue its meal. But just then, it heard another set of footsteps. 5 ordinary zombies fearlessly approached, disregarding its warning. Roar! The agile-type zombie roared again, its tone tinged with irritation. Shuffle! 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 Unexpectedly, the low-level zombies charged straight at it without hesitation. Attack! Kill it! Chuan directed the 5 corpse puppets to swiftly charge at the agile-type zombie. Initially, Chuan had masked these corpse puppets as ordinary low-level zombies, aimlessly moving towards the target. Given its speed and claw strength capable of tearing cars apart, a misstep might result in all 5 corpse puppets getting destroyed. Therefore, Chuan initiated the attack when the distance narrowed to 10 meters. Chuan's controlled corpse puppets were physically fit, adult male zombies, and they reached the agile-type zombie almost instantly. Bearing chilling fire axes, they swung them down without hesitation. The agile-type zombie, seeing low-level zombies dare to attack, showed immense rage. It moved instantly, but despite its agility, it got injured in the confrontation. It dodged most of the attacks thanks to its speed, but Chuan had prepared for a semi-surrounding position. Unless the zombie fled, it was bound to be injured. Its right arm and back were wounded on first contact, but one corpse puppet's axe got stuck between its ribs, and in fury, the agile zombie used its claws to tear that puppet's skull apart. The agile-type zombie evolved mainly for speed and fearsome offense. Their defense, compared to bulkier zombies, was much weaker. To Chuan, its defense seemed only slightly better than ordinary zombies. Under Chuan's control, 2 zombies feinted an attack from the front. Boom! The agile-type zombie, with formidable strength, pushed back Chuan's 2 zombies several steps with claws. However, the other 2 puppets immediately swung their axes. One chopped downward while the other sliced horizontally. The agile-type zombie dodged the top-slashing axe, but one axe buried deeply into its waist. Slash! A large chunk of flesh sliced away as the agile-type zombie suffered a grievous wound. Roar! In rage beyond measure, it burst with speed, tearing another puppet's head apart with claws. Yet the remaining 3 zombies rushed in. Though fast, the agile zombie couldn't escape the barrage of axes. Thunk! 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 3 axes struck successively, one severing the zombie's head. High skills don't beat knives, especially when I have 5 axes. Seeing the fallen agile-type zombie, Chuan felt jubilant. This evolved zombie was indeed powerful. Without remote control, the 5 low-level zombies would have perished quickly. Only 2 losses were incurred now. Chuan commanded the remaining corpse puppets to extract the crystal core, pocketed it, then swiftly returned to the residential area. These corpse puppets, controlled by Chuan, have long lost their own thoughts unless Chuan chooses to disconnect them actively. Although the crystal core is full of temptation for the zombies, these remaining 3 corpse puppets are completely unmoved. Under Chuan's control, the 3 corpse puppets sped towards the community. Along the way, perhaps some zombies caught a whiff of them and wanted to come forward and snatch it. Chuan controlled the corpse puppets to raise their axes and strike. Evolved zombies are somewhat difficult to deal with, but for these ordinary zombies with no thoughts, Chuan's controlled corpse puppets could basically take them out with 1 axe swing each. The Crystal Core escort team cut through like a hot knife through butter, rushing back to the community. After taking the Crystal Core, Chuan made these 3 corpse puppets wield fire axes and stand guard before the building's door to ensure the safety of the building. He then quickly ran to the 6th floor. Upon seeing the crystal core, Chuan was immediately delighted, because he discovered that this crystal core was identical to the one he had previously absorbed, white with a touch of red. This meant that the agile zombie he just encircled and killed was not only an evolved zombie, but had also devoured a crystal core. No wonder this agile-type zombie was so swift. It turned out it had already evolved once. Calming the slight excitement in his heart, Chuan then swallowed this crystal core. Instantly, a vast energy once again swept through his body, similar to the feeling before. Chuan's brain seemed to have expanded immensely again, but with the prior experience, Chuan found it easy this time around. Clenching his teeth and enduring the process of his telekinesis rapidly increasing, eventually, a very clear-minded feeling returned to his brain. A faint smile slowly appeared on Chuan's lips. He knew his strength had become stronger again. Chuan's five senses were once again enhanced. His hearing and vision, among others, had improved significantly compared to before, and most importantly, his telekinesis was far more powerful than before. Moreover, Chuan's previously very feeble body had finally significantly improved after devouring 2 crystal cores. His physical strength and speed, along with the defense of his skin, were all much enhanced compared to before. Chuan had been genuinely envious when he previously saw the massive size and strength of that large figure. Especially those 2 arms that were like refined steel, they could withstand attacks from an agile zombie capable of tearing apart car. Though his body has not quite evolved to such an exaggerated level, it was much stronger than before. Waving his fists with the wind roaring beneath, Chuan felt like a martial arts master from a wuxia movie who has immersed himself in martial arts for many years. Feeling his current body, Chuan nodded in satisfaction. Although his evolution direction was always in telekinesis, his previously weak body made him a bit uneasy. Now, he finally was significantly pleased with himself. Chuan picked up a steel machete placed by the side and started swinging it. In an instant, the living room was filled with flashes of the blade, with fierce and sharp whooshing sounds constantly slicing through the air. This steel machete in Chuan's hands seemed like a deadly weapon. Excitement flashed across Chuan's eyes. Indeed, devouring crystal cores accelerated power-ups greatly, substantially enhancing his close combat abilities. Afterward, Chuan concentrated his mind, finding that his telekinesis had also significantly improved than before. Initially, after the evolution by the blood moon, his telekinesis was roughly like a cup of water. Now, it had multiplied several times and could be likened to a wash basin. Standing upstairs, Chuan conducted a simple test and found that his current telekinetic power was sufficient to control 10 zombies. Moreover, the limit of control distance had reached 3,000 meters. Feeling extremely excited, Chuan quickly ran downstairs and, among the surrounding zombie hordes, selected 10 zombies with healthy limbs and strong bodies to serve as his corpse puppet squad. During this period, Chuan's dispatch of corpse puppets didn't miss searching for supplies around here. For weapons like fire axes, Chuan would make the corpse puppets bring them back to the building whenever spotted, equipping each corpse puppet with a sharp fire axe. These robust corpse puppets of average height of 1 meter 80 now stood in front of Chuan, each one bearing a fire axe on their shoulder, exuding an extraordinarily mighty aura. Looking at his zombie squad, Chuan nodded in satisfaction. The zombie version of the Axe Gang seemed to have already taken shape. Standing in front of this zombie squad, Chuan only felt spirited, having shed all the confusion and depression after the apocalypse. At this moment, Chuan was already conjuring up an image in his mind of commanding a massive zombie army, wielding sharp blades in battles far and wide. Ha ha ha! You may be strong, but so what? In a one-on-one fight, I may not be the rival of those close combat evolved zombies. But when Chuan ventures out, he relies on 3 things: ferocity, telekinesis, numerous corpse puppets. Surviving the apocalypse requires influence, who would fight solo against a bunch of small fry that only evolve muscles, not brain. I'm adopting the spawn troop strategy, employing a mass mobilization approach. You're empty-handed fighting me. Sorry, I've got axes and machetes together to serve you. Martial ethics? Having more men and more axes is the real good. Looking at his gradually stronger armed subordinates, Chuan felt increasingly rich in confidence. Turning his head towards building number 1 in the distance, Chuan slightly squinted, a cold, killing intent flashing in his eyes. He had not forgotten that in building number 1, there existed an extremely terrifying monster, utterly different from any zombie he had encountered before. Chuan was even hesitant to call it a zombie, because as a member of the zombie race, he really didn't want to acknowledge his kind with such a creature. Controlling the corpse puppets to experience death firsthand at close range, that blood-red figure brought terrifying shock to Chuan. Especially after facing an agile zombie today, in comparison, that zombie made Chuan even more apprehensive. Even this twice-evolved agile zombie couldn't withstand his swarm tactics, but the speed of that blood-red figure was even faster than an agile zombie, and its attacks were even more ferocious. What Chuan was most concerned about was that the opponent also had a tongue that could serve as a hidden weapon, almost impossible to guard against. 2 zombies were instantly killed. Could the 10 corpse puppets' strength barely swallow the opponent? After thinking it over, Chuan shook his head. With his current strength, it's still hard to guarantee victory over the opponent. The main problem was the too little knowledge about that monster, having merely met it once while scavenging for resources before. Chuan glanced towards the direction of building number 1, an apprehensive flash in his eyes. Considering the opponent's mysterious strength, Chuan decided to find another opportunity in a few days and send the corpse puppets into test again to see to what extent this monster's strength has reached. There was this ticking time bomb around. Chuan's mind couldn't be at ease. 3 days passed quickly. During this time, Chuan had almost transformed the 6th floor into a training room. Bang, bang, bang. Muffled sounds kept emanating from the 6th floor living room, accompanied by the snarls of zombies. Crack! Chuan grabbed a zombie's arm, locked its joint, and then swung it forcefully. This zombie slammed into another one that had just approached Chuan's back, ready to bite. Chuan swiftly landed a high whip kick, knocking down another zombie beside him, its head flying right off with a blow. Chuan moved at lightning speed, completing the series of actions almost instantaneously. After taking down 3 zombies, the other 2 barely managed to reach Chuan's side. Chuan chuckled coldly, diving down to grab and slam the 2 zombies together. Crack! Crack! With Chuan's fists swinging, the snarling zombies' heads were all smashed to a pulp. Even when attacked by 5 zombies at once, Chuan now handled it effortlessly. Chuan found that after evolving, his physical abilities had greatly improved. Not only strength, but also speed, reflexes, and bodily flexibility had all evolved comprehensively. This significant enhancement made Chuan, facing the zombie siege, seem like a martial arts master. His body moved like a dancing butterfly, easily dodging the bites and attacks of these ordinary zombies. And with the combat skills he had practiced during this period, Chuan could quickly take down several zombies. With the increase in strength, Chuan could crush zombie heads with powerful punches and kicks. Chuan nodded with satisfaction, his body now truly resembling that of a post-apocalyptic survivor. Previously, his frail and stiff body struggled to protect itself against ordinary zombie assaults, a concern that no longer exists. Chuan controlled the corpse puppets and moved these zombies, smashed into pieces, out of the room. Chuan then simply washed the blood off himself, as he had to feed the little guy soon. Being covered in blood wouldn't do. Returning to the 7th floor, Chuan prepared the formula and fed little Chi-Chi spoon by spoon. Seeing the little one's pure smile, Chuan couldn't help but smile too. The little one's appetite was growing, the milk tasted sweet every day. Even in this apocalyptic world, Chi-Chi's appetite hadn't diminished. After feeding little Chi-Chi, Lu Chuan fetched a pile of toys he had scavenged. Included were Barbie dolls, toy cars, teddy bears, and so on. Rushua looked at her zombie dad, awkwardly playing with her, feeling exasperated. Even though she seemed like a baby, her heart was that of a mature, calm, decisive, unparalleled empress. How could children's toys possibly interest her? But it was still a kind gesture from her zombie dad. Even as someone who had lived 2 lives, Rushua had long outgrown being entertained by small toys. Yet she felt incredibly warm inside, as she had never felt such love and pampering in either life. Seeing her zombie dad try so hard, Rushua forced a slight smile. Lu Chuan initially felt frustrated, seeing little Chi-Chi expressionless. Having never dated or raised a child, he could only imitate what he had seen in dramas. Thinking he had failed, he was surprised when the little one actually smiled, bringing relief and doubling his efforts in amusing Rushua. Rushua's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. Being too kind might not be a good thing. Never mind. Assume it's training my telekinesis. After playing with the little one for a while, Lu Chuan nodded contentedly. Then he went to the window. A sly grin appeared on his lips. Almost ready. Time to test that guy's limits. Lu Chuan selected his squad anew from the wandering zombie horde. Though evolved zombies were rare, ordinary low-level zombies were still abundant on the streets. Even with daily combat training, constantly depleting zombies, he could continually replenish his ranks from the surroundings. After some selection, Lu Chuan had replenished 10 corpse puppets. Each one was tall, strong, fully limbed, not previously bitten by others. The blood-red monster from last time had left a massive impact on Lu Chuan. 2 zombie corpse puppets were completely massacred without resistance. This stark difference in combat power made Lu Chuan never underestimate the opponent. Looking at these 10 robust zombies wielding fire axes, Lu Chuan nodded in satisfaction. Together, these 10 corpse puppets exerted a formidable sense of pressure. Lu Chuan believed that even against giant zombies, the corpse puppet squad could chop them to death. Though looking at these zombies, Lu Chuan felt something still lacked. After some thought, he slapped his forehead. I've armed these zombies with weapons, but they need at least some armor. Lu Chuan remembered a corner store selling electric bikes and helmets. He led the zombies to break open the shop door, outfitting each corpse puppet with a full-face motorcycle helmet. Seeing his transformed corpse puppet squad standing before him, Lu Chuan beamed with joy. The 10 corpse puppets, donning black full-face helmets, holding fire axes in formation, might be mistaken for a biker gang reincarnate. Lu Chuan tapped the helmets, nodding in satisfaction. The defense should now be adequate. As for other armor, Lu Chuan didn't provide any, as they were only low-level zombies. Without armor, he could just control new ones from the zombie horde if necessary. Zombies are nearly undead, defying biological norms. For zombies, only the head is fatally vulnerable. Protect the head, and even with missing limbs, they can still fight. Wearing helmets greatly enhances this corpse puppet squad's combat abilities. Even with body tears, as long as the head remains intact, they can swing back with an axe. Lu Chuan finally nodded in satisfaction. Then, leading his corpse puppet squad, he boldly marched towards Building 1.